It's like the Arctic in here. Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. Describe it. Describe it sensuously.
It's like 40 degrees outside. It's like walking into a fridge when you're just out of the pool completely naked. That's what it feels like.
Oh, yeah. You hear that, Whick?
That does sound good.
Wick's over there
I'm
like
just
you see the
answering
sweat
chat and
beads.
stuff and trying to get Pixie here. We'll give her another minute and then we'll just go live. And when she comes, she comes.
Wick, are you cool with me flipping this onto my screen in advance, or?
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay,
But,
so this isn't a private call. Okay, just making sure.
All right, I'm gonna take some heartburn meds in preparation.
Okay. Yeah, this is So let me kind of explain this format I'm trying here. Basically, it's going to be people have issues with what Counterpoints has said on Twitter, from Hunter Biden takes, Trump takes, political takes, to his cultural takes. And so I invited people from across the spectrum to come and take him to task. So I will introduce the topic, introduce the format, give everyone here a chance to say who they are, and then we'll just get into it. And yeah, we'll excoriate them, roast them, bring them through the ringer, and see how it goes. Any questions?
Is there a safe word just in case he can't handle the abuse?
There is no
pineapple.
No. Pineapple, tangerine.
I think this is a winning formula, Wick. I think people are going to be lining up to do this.
Just to yell at Connor. Yeah.
Okay, Pixie's computer is
meant for
spazzing
Connor.
out. She's in the process of getting it fixed so she can go over. She's going to be late. But in that case, we'll just go live now. We ready? Cool?
Sure.
Cool. Okay, welcome to yet another episode of Whick TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues cultural and political, from the silly to the serious. And gang, have we a show for you? We're trying something different today, something new, something interesting, I hope, right? Where we invited Counterpoints on, who has graciously accepted, to have the people who have been quite upset at him on Twitter and in other spaces and venues to hash it out with him live on air and kind of take him to task for his bad takes. Pixie is on her way. Her computer is quote unquote spazzing out. So once she gets that fixed, we'll have her in. But we will make do with the guests that we have for now. I guess we'll start by just letting everyone introduce themselves and kind of maybe if you have a problem with Counterpoints takes, just give us your biggest problem with Counterpoints. We'll start with that, and we'll just go around the room. We'll start with President Sunday, and we'll end on Counterpoints. So go ahead, Sunday.
Yeah, your headset and your glasses together sort of make you look like kind of like an X-Men fan movie. I kind of dig it, but it's a little weird.
Okay, fair enough. That's President Sunday, gang. You know him, you hate him, or you love him. We'll see. Chris Speaks, what you got?
Ages ago, I raided into Connor with like 50 viewers, and he didn't notice it because he was fucking nerding out over Warhammer. So ever since I had a bone to pick, and I figured today is going to be the day I get to call him a cunt right to his eyes.
Base.
Beautiful. Desire, go ahead.
I was going to say that we had substantive political disagreements, given that he's all about bashing Hunter Biden and President Biden. But since apparently we're going for the even harder hitting stuff, I'm going to say I'm a Star Wars fan and Connor is a Warhammer 40K guy, and we just can't abide one another. It's unacceptable.
Fine.
Well, that's unfortunate. We already have a schism in the opposition.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you also a 40K guy, Mr. President?
Star Wars, absolutely.
Oh God! Oh,
between the two shameless Dune ripoffs, 40K is much closer to the source material.
Oh. I don't know. Okay, wow, Wick, way to bring the drama. All right, I didn't realize it was going to be this way already. We're 5 minutes in, and I think this other guy here was shit talking Star Wars too. So great, it's going to be a 3-on-1. I'm supposed to be beating up Connor, and now it's going to be beating up me.
You know what?
I genuinely, I don't believe that Star Wars. I don't even believe that people like Star Wars. I think that you've watched it when you were a kid and you missed the time that you were young and without worries. And like nowadays, you're just fucking high on the nostalgia because it's over and it's gone.
Yeah.
How dare you, sir?
Just some audio issues, President Sunday. You're low. You're up as far as I can get on my end. But apparently people are having trouble hearing.
Hello. How's this?
Much
There's
better.
that ASMR voice.
Maybe my noise gate is too high. Let me fix that.
Might be. I guess we'll just get into it then. So you had some substantive political differences. We'll start with you, Josiah. Adam, what do you got?
Yeah, so Connor, I know you and I and Pisco and Rob are going to be relitigating some of this on Sunday, but Wick asked me if I wanted to talk to you about some of this stuff tonight. And obviously, you and I were going back and forth on Twitter about Hunter Biden, not for the first time, I might add. And so I guess my belief is that you think that this situation is much more serious than I do, number one, and number two, that you think that Hunter Biden is getting preferential treatment compared to, I don't know if it's compared to a Republican or compared to a Republican's child or compared to just the common citizen or all the above. But tell me what you think, and we'll hash some of this out.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that if you look at the Hunter Biden investigation and what's been revealed through the Durham investigation, regardless of whether or not you think Donald Trump is a piece of shit, I think he's a fucking piece of shit. There are substantive issues with the way that the investigation was launched, the bias that it had before it even began, the procedural things that they did in order to obtain and maintain FISA warrants, and also the way that it was politically leveraged in the public consciousness. And then even if you're going to say like, oh, well, you've shown me a bunch of smoke, but you haven't shown me any fire, I would say that the amount of smoke is substantive enough to request systemic reform because there's fucking issues across the board.
Well, I think that those are two radically different issues, right? So the Hunter Biden investigation and the Mueller Crossfire Hurricane Trump Russia thing are two radically different investigations.
We can do both. Basically, what I would say is that the way that they're linked is that.
Hang on, Wick. Just very quickly, Counterpoints. You are very low yourself, actually.
Okay. Let me go into Discord maybe and fuck with it.
You guys like stream for a living, don't you?
Yeah,
I
there's
don't.
like too much shit, right? There's too many programs that need to talk to each other. Where the fuck
I'm a
my
lefty.
voice
My
into
audio
settings?
being garbage is part of the job.
Yeah. Where the fuck
President
is voice
Sunday
settings?
also reads erotica too professionally, so
You mean to say that you don't?
I don't.
I'm maxed
That's
on my
for,
end,
that's
so if
for
you might
Yeah,
Mike
you're
Volunteer
max on.
pages.
I've turned you up on my end as far as you can go, Counter. I don't know why it's quieter than the rest.
I will just speak loudly if that is okay.
You seem more quiet than before, actually.
Then stop turning me down on your end. So basically, all right. So hold on. If you want to go for Hunter Biden, we can go for Hunter Biden. Let's break down the issues with Hunter Biden then. It seems like, not only seems like, this is what's already been revealed through the IRS whistleblowers. They conducted an investigation that was allegedly approved by the DOJ. Everybody was sucking President Biden off for keeping out of it, sucking Merrick Garland off for keeping out of it, all that kind of stuff. And what ended up happening was two of the chief investigators recommended felony charges from 2014 through 2019. They had felony charges for every single year, and everybody in the room conceded that they had enough evidence and enough prosecutorial discretion and all that kind of stuff in order to obtain felonies. As a part of the plea bargain, Hunter Biden received a single misdemeanor charge through which he didn't have to spend any jail time. And then not only that, what happened was the Delaware office was publicly praised by Merrick Garland as having the prosecutorial discretion and authority to make decisions on what they were going to push through for Hunter Biden. And then what happened was they all recommended felonies. The guy who's in Delaware pushed it off onto Merrick Garland. Then they tried to backdoor it through Los Angeles. Los Angeles denied the felony charges as well. And then not only that, but basically now that they let the statute of limitations expire on the felonies for 2014 and 2015. This is like open record. And now LA declined, Delaware declined, and somebody's fucking lying. So this has all happened in the past 48 hours.
So, before I respond, because there's quite a bit there that I dispute, I contest. Hi, Pixie.
Ow.
Wait, before you do, can
Yeah.
you say a few things? Because you're awful low.
Me?
Oh, me?
Pixie, yeah, you're awful low.
Three.
You're like very low. Can you crank yourself up by like 3 times?
Yeah, give me a second.
Yeah. Sorry, gang. It's a little scuffed. We're all kind of just getting here today. Look, I was running 3 hours late from what I normally do. My sleep schedule's boned, right? But we're working on. We're gonna get it through. We're gonna get into this, right? Because a lot of people have issues with Counter, and Counter needs to answer for his crimes.
I would say just
Oh my
yes,
god.
yes.
Okay, yay.
is it that we have issues with Connor, or Connor has a lot of issues? I prefer that framing, quite frankly, the latter over the former.
Okay,
but
well, tell me what you have wrong with the IRS whistleblowers, please.
Okay, so there are quite a few things. Number one, IRS investigators don't make prosecutorial decisions. They can make recommendations, but ultimately it's at the discretion of the presiding attorney, which in this case was David Weiss, the Trump-appointed attorney, number one. So I understand that the IRS investigators are upset that the prosecutor didn't ultimately go with their recommendations, but he was under no obligation to, number one. Number two, the situation as far as jurisdiction. So David Weiss is the USA for Delaware, and some of the charging decisions had to take place in California and in D.C., which are also presided over separate U.S. attorneys. So under normal DOJ rules, Weiss would have had to get permission from those U.S. attorneys in order to file those charges there, and they declined to do so. However, according to public testimony from Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, and David Weiss himself in 2 separate letters to Republican members of Congress, he said that if he needed the authority to make those charges, like if they declined to make those charges and he was like, no, then I still want to go ahead and make those charges anyway, he could have requested special attorney status and it would have been granted, and then he could have unilaterally made the charges wherever he wanted. And he ultimately chose not to. Now, if you demand an explanation as to why he let those DC and California charges collapse, fair enough. But this is not proof of a conspiracy.
Let me before we get into it, Counter, are you using the right microphone?
Yeah. Yes. Turn me up. I'm using NVIDIA.
You are up as far as you can go on
Do you
my
want
end.
Do you want me to turn off my NVIDIA broadcast and use my other mic? That way you guys can hear all of my mouth sounds, because that is another option. Here you go. Here is all my mouth sounds.
It's the fact that when you move closer to your microphone, there's no difference in sound. It's like something else has been picked up.
Oh, penis. All right, hold on.
It's just your lack of masculinity. You can't project enough.
Listen,
Look, I'm sorry to interrupt the thing, but now that Pixie's here, I want to kind of center in on this, because I think that the main accusation that I hear you levying here, Counter, is that the Bidens have gotten a pass from the justice system, and they should not have. Do we agree with that? I want to get other people in here. I'm sorry, Josiah, but I want to make it a group thing. President Sunday, do you believe they've gotten a pass?
I'm from Canada. I came here to talk about the wife thing.
Oh, well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. I promise. Pixie, any opinions on this, or are we waiting for the wife thing too?
I feel like this is something that I would have to. My first instinct, and like from what I've seen, I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I would rather do like a lot more research on this topic specifically before making a full statement. But I'm leaning towards no from the data I currently have.
Noted. Chris speaks. What do you think? Also not an American, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real. The only thing I know about Hunter Biden is the penis thing currently. Like, I do not care much for the whole thing. I'm here to talk about the relationship shit as well.
Okay, well, okay, Josiah. I guess,
and listen, Whick, I don't know how you want to do this. I don't know if you want to break it up and like do it in chunks and go back and forth or whatever. What would be easiest?
This is a new format for me, so we're just flying by the seat of our pants, gang. We're just throwing it in the wall, seeing what's.
Well, if Connor's in a position to respond to me, then I'll wait to respond to him until after we weigh in on the they weigh in on the
I
wife
was going to say, if I can just respond really quick, and then honestly, we're going to be at an evidentiary detente. So why don't we get to the evidentiary detente, and then we can move into the relationship shit, and then we can come back to it if we're still feeling spicy at the end of it.
I will definitely be feeling spicy. So
okay, so this is contradicted by two of the prosecutors who were sitting in the room with Weiss when they were making prosecutorial decisions, and allegedly it's contradicted by Weiss's own words within those meetings, in which he was saying that ultimately the decision did not rest with him. So what I would say is if that there were meeting notes, if there were audio files, if there were recordings, if there was anything like that, then that he's basically saying that this ultimately rests with the DOJ. Merrick Garland is saying that it rests with Weiss. Weiss is saying that it rests with Garland. And then publicly, they're saying that they have enough authority to do whatever they want to do. And then they're opting not to. So, yeah, like maybe if you want to do a whataboutism pivot to why weren't the Trumps investigated for their business dealings while they were in office?
I didn't even say Trump.
Okay, you're right. I am. But what I'm saying is, fuck all these people. I think they're a bunch of kleptocratic, crony fucking maniacs, and I hope they all get fucked. And on top of that, when I see the DOJ and the prosecutors basically playing footsie with each other in order not to bring felonies to court, that 20-year, 30-year experienced prosecutors and investigators, which, by the way, Weiss isn't the only prosecutor, when the lawyers who are present and the prosecutors are present are saying we have slam dunk felony charges and they are letting the charges expire, that to me is an obvious conflict of interest, and I don't know how anybody fucking familiar with the case could decline.
What prosecutors have said that? See, that's where I'm confused. The two whistleblowers
were in the room. Why don't you care about the two whistleblowers who were in the room?
The two whistleblowers were not prosecutors; they were investigators. Where are the prosecutors? Where did other attorneys who were not investigators, other attorneys, say that Weiss let the charges go? That they had slam dunk convictions and he just let it elapse?
Okay, here's the thing. So they know those names. I don't know those names.
Okay, so wait a minute. So just to clarify then, because that's where I was confused. To clarify, you're saying that the two whistleblowers allege that there are two other attorneys who could corroborate the whistleblower's claim. We don't have evidence that no prosecutor has come out and said, actually, yeah, I corroborate what the whistleblowers are saying. David Weiss had these charges that he just let elapse. The whistleblowers are alleging this, correct?
Correct, but your whistleblowers are not two fucking crackheads off the side of the street who have been like smoking drugs and they're fucking pieces of shit.
I didn't say that.
Disciplinary records and all that kind of stuff. They're like 30. They're either 20 or 30-year seasoned prosecutors who have brought together cases and successfully prosecuted international criminal organizations.
No, those are not the whistleblowers. With respect, Connor, those are
Shapley and Ziegler. I literally watched their fucking
They are
testimony
not prosecutors.
yesterday.
They are investigators. There are fundamental distinctions between the two. They don't get to make charging decisions. They can make recommendations, but ultimately those are in the hands of the presiding attorneys.
Okay, so now we're going to get real fucking pedantic with it. Since you're going there, I'm going to get pedantic. Do you think that somebody who is used to bringing evidence and working with prosecutors in order to secure convictions might know what a felony charge looks like? Like, so for instance, I'll use my own credentials at my own peril. I used to work as a law enforcement officer. I saw somebody who got beat the fuck up. Do you think I have sufficient knowledge as a law enforcement officer to know that battery charges would be warranted in that situation?
I think that you have an informed opinion. I would say that the prosecutors have more of an informed opinion than you.
Okay, so if I see a man if I see a woman who is beat the fuck up, she's covered in bruises, She has like nickel-sized bruises all over her fucking head, and then the prosecutors bring a felony conviction case against her ex-boyfriend or husband or whatever, and they successfully prosecute that conviction and obtain the conviction, and that person goes away for jail, and then the exact same scenario happens, but it happens to be the son of the mayor who committed the same crime, and then they fail to charge the son of the mayor. Do you think that it would be reasonable to assume that there was a conflict of interest or preferential treatment between these two things, and that I'm not just like a fucking fish with an IQ of 5 who can't tell the difference between these two situations?
If you had two identical situations and the only material difference is that the suspect in one was politically connected, then yes, I would think that that's a reasonable assumption.
Okay,
I don't think
this is
what
what the whistleblowers are saying.
I don't think, number one, I don't think that applies here. Number two, again, because investigators aren't the one to make the case in court. They don't have, number one, the legal expertise, and number two, they don't have the legal burden to prosecute the case successfully, to deal with defense attorneys. Now, it's 100% true. Connor, with all due respect, a cop and a lawyer are not on par in their legal knowledge. They're not even close.
What happened to you guys getting to that point? Connor even spoke French for some fucking reason. I thought you were going to get to like that big disagreement and then...
That's true. That's true. Sorry, you're right. I pushed back, and I shouldn't have. I should have let Connor have the last word until we go back to it later.
Okay,
we'll get to it. I promise you. We'll get to it. I just see my other three guests here sitting like twiddling their thumbs, and I want to make sure that they get in because look, originally Pixie, It was gonna be Pixie and Kelly Jean, but Kelly Jean got busy. She couldn't make it, and so I had to fill Kelly Jean's shoes, and it takes 3 of you motherfuckers to do so. Pixie, you had some problems with Connor's take. Connor, I guess we'll start with this. Do you remember the tweet you made that made everyone so angry?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'll read it.
Can you? Please.
Yeah, if I can, give me 1 second. I'll pull it up. Give me 30 seconds. I understand that people don't like dead air, but I would like to read the original tweet.
Right? Like, I saw
All right.
this.
So
I
married Mrs. Points partially because she has a good relationship with her father. She is a good woman, a great wife and mother, and cartoon trad con accounts should focus more on themselves and their communities over Jew posting. And that was in reference to Iron Age Irony Bro saying, I don't know who this is, but I'm getting sex with many men I barely know vibes, in reference to a photograph of my wife.
What was your problem with that, gang? Like, why was this controversial?
I think it was more like the surrounding discourse of it that was interesting, and like reading like other people's like comments and opinions. I think partially is a very strong word. I think it's definitely something okay that if it adds attraction, like obviously if you believe that a person's family treats them well, you would hopefully want them to treat their family well, right? I don't think that's controversial in and of itself. I do think the idea that like, oh, that being like one of the biggest, if not biggest, like contributor to marrying someone, I do think that's a little bit strange because there's a lot of reasons why a person might not have a good relationship with their family. And most of the time, a person doesn't really choose to have a bad relationship with their family. It's like an unfortunate consequence of who their parents are, how the family structure is. Like if you ask a regular person, like, do you want a good relationship with your family? Most of them are going to say yes for good reason. So I just think it's weird. I'm not saying Counter was exactly saying this. I was just seeing like comments around this discourse or whatever that was
Do you
basically
think that's
like,
true, though? Do we think it's true that most people don't choose to have a bad relationship with their family?
I am incredulous,
Mm.
and my primary issue is I don't think Connor even really believes this on any level of scrutiny. I don't think Connor would say in public that if his wife had a bad relationship with her father, if he discovered that this would in any way determine whether or not he would have pursued a relationship with her. I think it would depend on, first of all, the nature of it. If she had a bad relationship with her family because she was abusive towards them or because she was engaged in something irresponsible or destructive, nobody would have any problem with that whatsoever. It's the blanket statement, quote unquote, daddy issues signals bad marriage material that strikes people as very off color, you know? That's the only issue I have.
Well,
I don't think for 1 second that he actually, that's actually a metric that he employed. Like, think about it for 5 seconds. How would that actually go down? You hit it off with this person, you have a good rapport, da 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 da. Suddenly you go to a family get together, she argues with the dad, then all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, I think we just need to be friends. Like, please.
okay, this is all shockingly fair so far. But are we going to? So just to try to cut to the heart of the contention, are we gonna pretend that these things don't correlate with like negative outcomes, like bad relationships with family, bad relationships with parents, bad relationships with
it's
father?
the-
No, hang on. Of course, bad relationships with family can correlate with bad outcomes of many different sorts. However, from the vantage point of somebody who's courting somebody else, what you get first is not the person's family history. What you get first is your relationship with the person, and then presumably you're introduced to the family and so on and so forth afterwards. And so, what people are taking issue with is sort of the post hoc characterizing of people as having daddy issues or whatever, as simultaneously like giving special privilege to some relationships or treating some people as in some way intrinsically inferior. That's what people take issue with. I don't think for 1 second that being pleased with the fact that your spouse has a good relationship with their family is a bad thing. That obviously comes with numerous benefits. That's uncontroversial.
Yeah, so I think the word that we could get hung up on if we're trying to make this contentious is intrinsically. So I think that the main thing is, and I could go through my family history if y'all wanted, but just to cut to the heart of it, intrinsically no. I'm sure there's plenty of women who grew up without a father, or they had an emotionally absent father, or they had somebody who left halfway through, or they died, and
Or,
they had.
picture this if you will. Father they get along with later on in life. She develops her own personality and values and so on and so forth. Father maybe has some political issues. I used to have fights with my dad. He had a brief spat where he was watching Fox News all the time. Had a really really unhealthy attitude towards Muslims in Iran and stuff like that. We argued about that. That affected our relationship. That didn't signal a developmental failure on my part, or something about me that made me inferior as a partner to somebody else later on. This was just an incident of two people in the world with different experiences coming at a crossroads over time. Like that stuff like that can happen, and relationships can break apart entirely because of that, right?
Okay, but I'm probably just
Not
going
that
to
that contradicts what you were saying. Just
I
as
was
an
about to
additional-
say I'm probably going to get another concession here, because basically I think you would agree then how you approach those conflicts though is material to like the character of a human being. So for instance, if you have like a dog shit
Well,
abusive
to two
like
human beings, right?
well,
because that's an interaction
Well,
between
Sunday,
yeah, okay.
I respect you. I respect that you and I have not been nice to each other on Twitter, and I appreciate the charitability that you've entered this conversation with. So I was expecting something a little bit more memey. So I'm going to try to follow that spirit, but I would like the opportunity to respond. Basically, like the character is not insofar as like the uncontrollable circumstances, right? I think we all understand that you can only rise to a certain level of potential based off of the variables that are set against you. I'm not blaming someone for being born to a shitty family. What I would say though, how you approach those relationships is material. So if you say, hey, I need like rational emotional boundaries with my abusive parent, that of course is going to be way better than somebody who maintains an abusive relationship with a parent, but then allows that to toxically fester in the rest of their life. So, I don't know what we're fighting about, I guess.
Well,
if I can just jump in real quick, so we can just
very quickly, and then it'll be quiet for a long time. Just a quick
Concisely,
reply.
please. We do have other people here.
Yeah, of course. Fair enough, but as I scrambled to reclaim the point I was making before I was thrown off, fuck, as you were.
Okay, Chris, go.
I think really the explanation that you're given, everything that you're talking about makes perfect sense to me, right? And like I imagine it was the case with most of us that we kind of just realized that when we're having the back and forth, it will be a lot more reasonable of a position than how it was worded on Twitter. Like I think that people took issue with the wording on Twitter, right? It was like the idea that like what you're describing essentially is that there is some kind of a red flag, which can mean something in a relationship, but it very much came across as though you're saying that like you should have a relationship with a woman who has a good relationship with her father, which came across as though you're saying that like if a person doesn't, then there's somehow a worse than or a less than because their relationship with their father isn't that great. And like any nuance gets lost on Twitter because it's fucking Twitter.
Yeah, so if I could just, I know this is going to maybe derail us or whatever, but I would like to kind of say, through no moral fault of the person of their own, there are obviously correlated behaviors that nobody has contested so far, but I want to say that these are real behaviors. So, for instance, like fatherless homes are, I just brought this up so we could maybe address them. They're 4 times more likely to be at risk of poverty. They're more likely to have behavioral and psych issues. They're 2 times more great for infant mortality if there's not a father present in the home. Children of fatherless homes are more likely to go to prison, more likely to commit crime, 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen.
Let's grant
more
all that.
likely. Okay, hold on.
No, you're
I'll
right.
finish
Let's
and then you
lay
can
an
grant
endless
it.
number of bad things.
Yeah,
But
there's
very
an
quickly,
endless
very
number of
quickly.
bad things.
No, but
and
there's
as
a crucial
result, if
point.
people, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. There's a crucial point that you're missing, though. And that's that the order in which, as a person in the dating pool, you are exposed to these facts, the fact of the person having issues with their parents is going to be at the back end. That's something you discover over time. Those social issues that cause them to have that maybe stem from issues with their parents, you're
But
going
the
to be
question
exposed to those
is,
first.
Sunday, the
right?
question is, and Pixie, I'll see, and I'm curious what you have to say here. But the question in my mind, I guess, and why I thought this might be an interesting topic, is why can't it be a deal breaker? That just you discover this later on in the relationship, you have a good relationship, it's fine.
There's
you're
no
getting
reason why it
intimate,
can't be a deal breaker. Of course. you
and then you find out that they are from a very bad home. I understand that it's through no moral fault of their own.
can. No. But
that does make them less desirable.
Yeah.
It just makes you less desirable.
Well, to a person, you can't dictate what a person finds desirable. The question is
In
whether or
general,
not that is in.
of course.
The question is whether or not
people
that
like it.
criteria. The question is whether or not that criteria is considered honorable. I guess you could say. There are things people read that are unflattering about the attitude of the person to other human beings, in prioritizing, for example, trivial facts about their background, irrespective of how the person actually presents themselves and how they act as an individual.
Pixie, I'm throwing it to you.
I want to go next if that's okay. After Pixie, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so basically what I find weird about this is that, hey, yeah, you know what, there are like behavioral issues that can be linked towards having a, bad or abusive situation at home. However, I find it weird to judge it on the basis of just having a bad home instead of the basis of like exhibiting those issues, right? So I think it's because not only are there like a bunch of people who go through those situations and don't necessarily have those like behavioral issues, I think you're kind of judging it on a factor that cannot be controlled at all, right? So it's like basically saying, oh, I'm assuming because you have a bad home that all these other things follow. And I don't think that's necessarily fair or 100% true. Now, is there a higher likelihood that it's true than not? Sure, for a lot of cases. But I think you should judge the person or basically the criteria around that person to see if that judgment is true versus just the fact that they had like a bad home situation. I think that's a better measurement.
Do you think, Pixie, a question for you. Do you think it's okay to break it off with someone because of red flags? So they're not abusive behaviors in and of themselves, but they're red flags that showcase, well, maybe this person might exhibit abusive and be abusive in the future.
I think ultimately it's okay to break up with someone for basically almost anything, in my opinion. Like, I don't think it makes sense to stay in a relationship that you're not enjoying for whatever reason. It could be something as dumb as like, oh, like what is it? I don't appreciate how they snore at night or something. Ideally, though, if we're talking about what's healthy and like what I think is best for the person themselves and the relationship, you would ideally try to work through those problems. And if those like problems are not workable, then end it. But I'm not gonna be here and be like, oh no, like don't break up with someone even though you really want to. Like I don't think that makes much sense. I don't think that works for anyone in the long run.
I do have responses, but I know Chris speaks this way.
No, well, yeah, let's let Chris give his take, and then you can respond
Suggestion,
to all of them.
Whick.
What's
quick
that?
Suggestion. The person in Counterpoints' position in this point, in this case, Counterpoints, is sort of up against 1 to 5 odds. They should be allowed a right of interruption a little bit more.
Yeah, Counter.
I'm good for now. I can stand by.
The problem with Counter right now is his volume is so fucking low.
Oh my god! You talk so fucking loud if you need me to. Holy fuck!
You need to yell. You need to scream.
You get quieter. It's like a mouse falling down a tunnel.
Yeah, it's.
Okay.
Yeah,
Chris,
I wanted to address directly what you were asking, of like whether it's right or not right to break up with someone over that. I was an incel when I was way younger, and then I got like very lost in the sauce and sort of fell to the red pill. And what I'm hearing has like kind of a similar vibe to that, and it's the sense that like you're putting arbitrary barriers between yourself and happiness in like this really weird way. They're not arbitrary because they're irrelevant per se, because red flags can be very relevant in a relationship. They're arbitrary because none of them are definitive, and relationships are supposed to be about like the interpersonal like shit rather than like the robot like statistical analysis of every single shortcoming you might have as a result of like a number of things that I've picked up are problematic about your relationship. And I think it's just things like having a bad relationship with your family, things like it's not irrelevant, but also I wouldn't personally, of course, break up with someone over it, if that makes sense. And if you told me that, like, hey, me and Whick, we were in a fucking perfect relationship, right? And we were literally, like, going down on each other every fucking night of the week. And there was just this level of love that is difficult to describe. But then I found out he doesn't get along with his father, and, like, I broke off the whole fucker. Like, I would think that you're a bit strange if that happened. Like if I knew someone who makes decisions like that, I would probably trust you a little bit less on like a personal level.
Okay, so I switched to my headset.
Yes.
That is so much better.
Yes.
This
whatever you did. Beautiful.
Now I'm blowing out the ears of my audience. Hold on.
Yeah, not just your own, buddy. Not just your own.
Penis. Okay, should be good. All right, so let's address what we've got so far. And basically, bad home. All right, actually, I just want to address what Chris said. That way we can do it. Yeah, of course. Like, it shouldn't be the only factor. If you have good chemistry, they're relatively emotionally mature, they can control some of their negative impulses that might be correlated with being from a fatherless home. They have ambitions. They're a good person in bed and out of bed. They want to get married. Either you guys agree on having kids or not having kids, all that kind of stuff. That's infinitely more important than whether or not they have a good relationship with their parent. But what I've kind of gotten from the conversation so far is the fact that we all all agree that these things are correlated, if not caused, and they're not moral faults on behalf of the individual, but they do exist. So if we're conceding to reality that bad homes can lead to bad behaviors, then I think that the outcome that I would be looking for is for people from fatherless homes or from broken homes or toxic homes, if they could be knowledgeable about the potential bad outcomes and then try to mitigate those to the maximum ability possible so they can become the best version of themselves they can be, not just for a partner, but also for themselves. And then if people who are dating, if they know that that is a red flag, then they can be on a lookout for the negative behaviors that we all consider correlated. So I want to point this out, though. We are approaching the subject with an infinite higher amount of charitability than anybody had on Twitter. And basically, it does, from my perspective, it feels like a little bit of a walk back compared to the amount of shit I was getting on Twitter. And then also, not only that, but when lefties let go of me, when they stop shit talking me, is when I said that stable women were my kink. So what the fuck is wrong with lefties that, like, we can talk about the correlated behaviors and this, that, the other, but if I throw up a shield of this is my sexual interest is emotionally stable women, they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. I don't like attacking kinks. That's wild.
I don't quite like. I don't think that anyone like suddenly we've realized that like, oh fuck, now we're entering like kink shaming territory. Therefore, like it's all okay. We're just gonna like let you off. You do your thing. But like also to be super clear, like the things that we're talking about, none of this is a concession. Like no one here, to my understanding, held a position that being fatherless cannot be a red flag. The point is that like all of the nuance that we're exploring right now, and I think that you know this as well, none of this nuance was in your tweets at the time, right? Like when you're saying that like everyone should marry a woman who has a good relationship with her father, you're not exploring the nuance of like if you're stable but that relationship isn't great but you have all the other green flags and that's a-okay. You're saying something like very different to what we're exploring right now.
Okay, well then let's find the.
Well, let me just ask directly.
Tweet.
Let me ask directly. Okay, so this is to the panel. This is to everyone, right? You have two women or two men, right? Whatever you're into. Two people you're dating, you're seeing, right? Nothing serious yet, but you have to decide which to have a serious relationship. Which one are you going to pursue an actual, stable, kind of monogamous type of relationship? Assume you're into that. If you're not into that, okay, work with me here. Okay, one of them comes from a great home. They have a great relationship with their family, great relationship with their father, their mother. Everything's good on that end. The other does not. The other has a tumultuous, it's causing them all sorts of issues and problems. Everything else is the same. Equally attractive, equally interesting, equally intelligent, equally charming. This is a variable.
Okay.
Obviously, you're going to go with the one that's not from the broken home.
Well, I think
correct?
there's a creeping problem in your thought experiment here. You're kind of doing a veil of ignorance thing. The problem here is that you don't develop relationships by looking at a sheet. I mean, I guess like increasingly people do these days, never mind. But you don't typically pick a relationship based upon looking at like a character sheet and picking the ideal traits. You develop a relationship with the people you happen to encounter in your life. And so if you've developed a relationship with a person, the question is, because once again, these parental and familial and all these different issues, these are things that are going to be revealed to you as you become closer to the person, whether or not these are treated sort of intrinsically or reflexively as deal breakers or not. That's a different question from whether or not you would prefer to have a partner, all things considered, with a stack of historical characteristics that sort of predicate or are associated with positive
But we've
outcomes.
done this for a long, long time. And Pixie, I'll let you go after respond to this. But you're just wrong. We make pros and cons lists. I did this as a teen. Like when I had.
I don't know what you're. Hang on, I'm not sure what you're responding
pros and
to.
cons, right? Pros and cons of
Yes.
like these are the pros of Sally, these are the cons of Sally, these are the pros of Susie, and these are the cons of Susie.
But you did
and you
that.
rack them and stack them, and you make choices
Like on
based
an actual
on
piece
that.
of paper, Wick.
Yes, on a
Like you had fucking
notebook.
post-it notes around your house being like, well,
Not
Susie's...
a post-it note, but the idea that we don't like look at these
Okay.
qualities as we're getting to know and as they are revealed to us, and then use those qualities to make judgments is weird to me.
Yeah, but we look
I
at
also-
them in the
hold
way
on,
that
what?
Sunday just described,
Go-
right? We
go
look
ahead,
at them
Counter.
in
Go
a
ahead,
like a
Counter.
more...
Yeah, Chris, sorry for interrupting, but
And then
I want to
Pixie,
point out
I see you Pixie
this
next,
is so I want to address a point, and then I want to move through the tweet thread. So the point that I wanted to make was that I understand that people are pissed that I'm like passively indicting them for the behaviors of their family and all that kind of stuff. But we've kind of already conceded that this is something worth evaluating. And on top of that, when you get married, you're effectively merging families. So most people want to get married. Most people want to have children. And when you get married, you're kind of marrying your other partner's family. So like you can say
So to be clear,
Mhm.
if your wife had a bad relationship with her father and you knew her exactly as she is now until years later down the line you were introduced to her father, maybe they live abroad or whatever, that would be a reason to cut off the relationship. That would tend towards that. Her happenstance relationship with her father.
If she was like, oh, I have like a father who's like a diddler who used to put out cigarettes on me, but I still want to have a relationship with him.
What if
then
it's just
obviously...
interpersonal friction? They just bicker a lot and it has downstream effects.
Let Counter answer your question. Sunday,
Yeah,
you keep interrupting.
I'm particularizing.
Well, we would have to take it to the extremes because even in good relationships you have conflict. So when you go to like normal levels or I don't even want to say normal. If you go to average levels of conflict or slightly above average levels of conflict, of course you can mitigate it through good interpersonal communication. But all right, so I kind of made my point. I hope it was heard. But let's move through the tweet thread.
Well, perhaps the father should go on the first date.
And Pixie's in the chamber. After we go through the tweet thread, Pixie's in the chamber. Pixie's next up on to bat. So go through the tweet thread, and Pixie.
And you're joking, Sunday, and so were people in your tweet thread. But basically, like having a father involved in like a teenager or young adult's life is actually something that's a measure for promiscuity and risk of pregnancy and risk of taking risky behavior. So that's the thing. It's like the statistics all bear this out. So you can say like, oh, I met somebody who has daddy issues, but they were able to conquer them.
No,
as a result, they're
we're
good.
talking about the epistemic. We're talking about the epistemic limitations of the person selecting partners on the basis of daddy issues.
Okay,
right?
well, I'm a Marine, so you're gonna have to use smaller words. But anyways, so
you don't know about their daddy issues until you know the person. I don't know about you, but on a first date, I don't typically go, and this was the fight I had with my Aunt Ruth back in.
Yeah, but you can say, "What's your family like?"
I have an Aunt Ruth. Yeah, of course. But if they say for example, well, I left my family's religion or whatever, and they don't accept me as a result of this, so we don't have like a great connection anymore. That would stand as, for example, a pretty categorical breakdown of a relationship with one's parents. Would you consider that like an
evaluative criteria? Absolutely, but it would depend
no.
on the situation.
Of course you would. But my question is, would you actually decline a relationship with that person on that basis? Would that tip the scale? Like, would you actually calculate to yourself, oh, this person doesn't have the warm fuzzies when they're in a room with daddy. I don't want to be in a room with daddy either.
Okay, so let me use two examples without interruption. So one, if they were from an Orthodox Muslim family that was basically saying if you date a kafir, we're going to hit you with rocks. Obviously not. I'm going to use that as a negative, and I might actually see that as a benefit thing that they had the moral fortitude to cut out on their own against their family. However, if they're fucking Presbyterians who want them to go to church on Christmas and Easter twice a year, and they want them to wear nice clothing while they do it, and instead this person is showing up to church in fucking goth clothing and screaming fucking hail Satan, then of course I'm going to judge that
but
person.
I mean you'd probably notice that before you knew about them going to church though, right?
Yeah, but
my examples are apt.
Okay, no, that was exactly the thing that I wanted to bring up earlier with the idea that like stable equals good or whatever. No, there's clear situations where it's actually like a bad indicator if a person has a stable relationship with their family, if their family's like fucking insane or abusive, for example. And there's indicators where like, hey, like putting up your boundaries, saying, hey, this isn't acceptable, might lead to like a bad relationship with them, but is a good moral indication of their character, which goes back to the fact that like, hey, you know what, maybe there's better criteria to judge a person on, which is their interactions like in general, not just like, oh, the fact that they have a bad family situation, more like, okay, why do they interact with the family the way they do versus in the fact that they just have a bad family situation.
Sure.
To be fair, though, if I can just because I could be wrong on this, and I don't want to dogpile Connor here either, but like
why not? Hold on, stop. That is the format.
This is the sweetest dogpile I've ever had.
Look,
this is like a bunch of puppies fucking
okay,
nestling in a basket together.
Disappointing me. I wanted claws. I wanted red,
I'm curious about something because like what Pixie just described, I would wager that Connor would say that isn't a stable like family situation. Like if Connor meets a person who like is tethered to her parents, but her parents are like fucked up psychos, I don't think Connor would consider that a stable relationship, right? Like I'm pretty sure it would be like the qualifier would be both for the person to be stable and for like the parents to have a reasonable relationship, let's just say. Am I correct on this? Or?
Yeah, no, not only are you right, we have an example. Grace Thorpe. She's, in a relatively attractive gal with a relationship with her father that seems pretty strong, but that relationship seems toxic as fuck. And as a result, it would actually be a red flag that she was tethered to toxic people rather than a green flag.
Yes. This is the crux of the matter, though, and this is why people are actually upset. You're trying to do two things that are contradictory with each other. You're trying to have this reasonable take where, yeah, of course it's perfectly reasonable for somebody to take somebody's like intimate relationships into consideration when you're choosing who to spend your life with. But on the other hand, you're trying to leverage women with daddy issues are damaged goods in order to appeal to the red pill crowd. That's what people are offended by. That's disingenuous.
Okay, well then let's address the disingenuous, and then I'll just cop to the negative thing I did. So let's just read the tweet, because this is what started it all, by the way, which I think it needs be remarked, all right? I started getting dogpiled by lefties by calling out like a fucking right-winger who was posting about Jews and my wife being a whore. But anyways, let's ignore that. So I don't think anybody takes issue with the phrase, she is a good woman. She is a good woman, a great wife and mother, and cartoon trad accounts should focus more on themselves and their communities over Jew posting. I don't think anybody has an issue with that sentence, right? Okay, so nobody has an issue with that sentence. So
Whick,
the issue.
Any issues? Speak now.
I have an issue that people aren't super chatting and following more. Ice Beans, I see your comment. I'll read it, but let's let them go for a minute.
Just out of curiosity, Connor, was that Whick that you were responding to?
No, this was Iron Age Irony Bro. So unless that's
Whick,
Wick's
is that one of your accounts?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the next point. I married Mrs. Points partially because she has a good relationship with her father. And then let me enter into the lore a little bit, okay? So my wife's parents are not together. As a matter of fact, they have a very toxic relationship, the wife and husband do. But the husband, or ex-husband, I guess, is a very hard worker who made it a point to stay in his children's lives despite having every excuse to run away, supported them financially, made sure that they had decent academics, made sure that they made it through school, maintained a good relationship with them through post-secondary education, maintained connections enough that he can talk to his kids about their social lives, and also calls his family like at least once a week, if not twice a week. Now that is like a level... That's like a lovely closeness of intimacy and friendliness that I don't even have in my family. And my parents are together. I talk to my parents like once every few weeks or once a month. So I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to see two people who have a good relationship despite having all the variables and excuses to not have a good relationship and say, I want to be around these people. I think that's a perfectly fine thing to say.
It's 2023. No one's going to judge you.
Would you go as far, and Ice Beans, I'll read your comment right after this, but question for Counterpoints here. Would you go as far as to say, as you did in your tweet, that not only you can understand why people would want this, but you think it would be better for society if more people sought this out and used this as a criteria? Do you think it would improve society if more people went and chose people from good homes rather than bad homes?
Okay, so I think it would be good for society if they chose people from good homes and over bad homes, but then I think it would also be a better, more nuanced criteria to say if there's people from bad homes who have overcome their issues or who take active measures to overcome their issues, then of course that's going to be a better society.
What about a person from a bad home? No? What about a person from a bad home who's well adjusted? Just because their character happened to develop.
All right, what about a person from a good home or the stable home, family home life, whatever, that, theoretically shouldn't be good, right? So for example, if you're married, yeah, exactly. That's like what my biggest contention is, where it's like, okay, they have a good home, but
they're a piece of shit. Yeah, don't fucking date them.
Okay, Connor, look, I'm gonna make this a million times easier for you, okay? This is how you avoid all of the complaints. Just say one of the decisions that led to me choosing to marry Mrs. Points is that I observed how she interacts with her family. It seemed really healthy, and I projected that she would carry those tendencies into our family going forward. Nobody would have an issue with that.
Are you giving people advice how to interact on Twitter in a less acidic way? Is this happening?
Yeah, I was about to say that. Number one, that doesn't fit in 280 characters. Number two, I couldn't have brought that up and also brought up the Jew posting and slut shaming of my wife. So
Yeah, but when you're talking to us, you can do that, right?
Okay.
Like you have multiple. You can do multiple tweets.
So hold on.
We did that.
So
back
yeah,
and
I was about
forth.
to say, President Sunday successfully ratioed me with the following tweet.
No, that's not true. He got all his friends. And he ratioed me on behalf of his wife, which is a
Okay,
noble and heroic endeavor.
I had to defend the honor of my wife. But no, you ratioed me on this one. You said ... You married your wife because of her relationship with her father, ? That's 346 likes to 270 of my likes. So that means that a lot of people really didn't like what I had to say. And not only that, probably the half dozen more like extreme comments in that section are saying that because I like my my wife's father, that I want to have sex with him, and it's a Freudian fucking subconscious thing.
Hey, look,
that I want to bang
man,
my father-in-law.
I'm not judging you.
Yeah,
No,
we're
We're lefties. We have to accept you.
It feels very judgmental. Like if I wanted to have homosexual sex with my my wife's father, that's between me and my own subconscious.
Okay,
What's wrong with
Connor?
y'all?
Connor. To be clear, nobody thinks you want to have sex with your wife's father.
Uh-huh.
What they're saying is that the
Before I do
logic
now.
carried forward implies something uncomfortably adjacent to a sentence looking like that. You see what I'm saying?
I don't. But Ice Beans, let me read this Ice Beans comment before she kills me. I liked your analogy, Whick TV, but the difference between Sally Goodhome and Susan Badhome is that Susan may have a history of problematic behavior patterns derived from her interactions from her family, and even if she does not do them with you, she's going to have to actively fight those patterns throughout your marriage and family life, and that would be the reason you'd vote Goodhome.
True. Unless you're really into kinky sex. So the following tweet, where I did ratio President Sunday, was you should marry a woman who has good relationships with her family. This is uncontroversial anywhere besides Twitter, the refuge of the fatherless. Now that's me getting a little spicy, I'll admit it. That's me slut shaming, girls with daddy issues. Well,
yeah, that's
right.
by the way,
fatherless?
that specifically that was the tweet that I took like the main issue with.
Yeah.
And in my defense, to be fair, Connor, and this is like completely your fault. I was scrolling through your fucking feed to get to that tweet, and I had like that Ellen thing pop up where I'm just like out of ability to browse Twitter anymore because of how much time you spend on that fucking website retweeting shit.
Nice. Yeah, see, it's sabotage. Pay $8 a month to Elon, or else you're gonna fail. So, anyways, the point being that is a jab at people who do not have a father. Absolutely. Like I'm calling lefties and progressives who are saying that I want to subconsciously bang my father-in-law. Yeah, I'm saying that you probably have a bunch of correlated.
Have a father.
Well, do you want to bang your father-in-law?
I don't have a father-in-law, but no.
Do you want to bang Connor's father-in-law?
Do you want to bang my father-in-law?
I don't know. Let's send me a picture. I'll let you know.
Okay, I'll let you know. He's basically he found out that he was pre-diabetic, so he started getting in shape. He might be into it.
I want to take a moment to ask Josiah, because Josiah gets at me all the time, right, for being too harsh on lefties. Okay, you get at me at this all the time, but why aren't you calling out the lefties? Why aren't you calling out the lefties who are going harder on Counterpoints for defending his wife than they would at the legislation that's being passed, right? Or politicians that could actually mess with you, right? They seem to be more interested in attacking Counterpoints for making a statement on Twitter.
I see what you're doing here. Very sneaky. Listen, I will say, I was worried you were going to ask me to weigh in on this. I'm like, I've got absolutely no fucking comment. But as far as, President Sunday and Pixie and this, what's your name, buddy?
Oh, we're gonna have an issue now.
Chris.
Okay, this person right here, who I do like, by the way, except for his Star Wars takes, he's awful, terrible. I do agree. I wish that they would beat up Connor more about his political takes than his relationship takes, but that's just because my preference is, policy and political rhetoric and stuff like that, as opposed to, red pill and culture war shit.
Also, because it's easier.
What is easier? Wait, the politics is easier, or relationship stuff?
That was easier. He was breaking down really fast into that one.
That's true.
In this conversation, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so fair enough. But yeah, obviously I wish that they would focus more on politics and stuff like that. But that's just my preference. I mean, if you're going to discuss like culture war
let's ask
issues,
them.
but yeah.
Pixie, you follow Counterpoints, right?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I just go in and out of Twitter sporadically, and every single time, because of the shows I've been on, I'm inundated with like red pill shit, so I just like don't stay on there for too long.
Fair enough. I am curious why you decided to go after Counter on this of all things, rather than some of his political takes that are right leaning.
Because it popped on my feed, literally.
Because she wants to sleep with his father-in-law, or whatever the meta
Yes.
is now. Apparently, everybody wants to sleep with Connor's father-in-law.
This was an elaborate scheme to.
I'll tell him.
I'm telling the truth now. I'm
He is
sorry I have
single.
to come out like this. I mean, he seems like he has a really healthy relationship with the people around him.
If
so
you're
that's
if you're
really
into
sad.
if you're into like a middle-aged silver-haired George Clooney dude with just like a little bit of dad bod vibes, then yeah, I could set you up.
He's selling it.
Personally, I'm not, but I actually have a friend who legitimately might be interested. But whatever.
Okay.
We'll
I like the attention to his below the neck.
Yo, if we get
physicality, too.
Counterpoints
Very, very
laid
healthy
out of this,
relationship with it.
I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, jeez.
But
I'm imagining the Michael Scott meme where it's like, "Stop dating my dad."
But I want to get back into the in the meat of the discussion here, because I think I have a stronger take on this than maybe Counterpoints does. I saw this, and I don't know why we want to pretend that someone's family doesn't influence them. Your upbringing absolutely influences them.
No,
Can I
yes,
piggyback
Ian,
off
hold
this
on.
before we get
No
into
one's.
it?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so of course I'm taking a shot. I saw a few people who were saying that I wanted to have sex with my father-in-law, so I took that like a little bit personal. This is also in reference to me defending the honor of my wife against some tradcon red pill fucking douchebag. So yeah, I took it a little personal and I took a shot. But at the same time, like, can we just admit that we operate in a political landscape in which it is like it was normal a year and a half ago for, and I know some of y'all are friends with this person, so I'm not trying to talk too much shit, but like, Doe, they had a very hard upbringing, and that correlates to some behavior that I would say is negative. I would judge it as negative. And
Why don't you be specific? What are you referring to?
well, I would say participating in like vor fetishism and going by its pronouns and potentially drug use and all that kind of stuff. I would consider that bad.
Okay.
Okay, and then that's one example. If you want me to use another example, Counterpoints.
Well, I'm just a little bit perplexed.
Okay, hold on. I'll give you another example.
No, but you don't need to.
Oh,
That's plenty.
Sunday, you said, why don't we let Counterpoints interrupt more?
Yeah.
And then
I didn't say I would. I didn't say
talk.
that would mean I'd interrupt
bitch.
less. This is blood sports, my dude.
Counterpoints, go ahead.
Yeah. So okay, no, but if you want to go with some other examples of negative behavior, I would say that Counterpoints obviously struggled with addiction issues. We have a whole host of people in this space
look.
who are struggling
I
with
getcha.
drug issues, addiction issues,
Okay,
familial
okay,
issues,
look,
relationship issues.
Connor, stop digging the hole. It's okay. You're
Digging
talking
the
to
hole.
people digging the hole. You're talking to lefties. So one of the things that sort of colors most lefties these days is that we pay a lot of attention to the historic, ergo, the effects of familial conditions on development and stuff like that. If you're trying to argue that we have some kind of aversion to saying that familial problems cause personal problems later on, I mean, obviously not. That's sort of the premise of a lot of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the objection to what you're saying is that in the abstract, you're basically treating people who come out of those conditions as inherently inferior, just on the basis of trivial facts of their background that
I think inherently is doing a lot of work.
Well, it
you
is.
could use the potentially.
But not just potentially, though, because when you're talking about these people as a category, you're not saying that, these people have the potential to be bad or toxic or underdeveloped people or whatever, because that's also true of people who come from healthy households.
But Sunday, I think you would agree with me, right? That in certain contexts, some people are just inherently inferior based on no fault of their own, perhaps.
Well,
but
of
they're
course,
just
I work with
inherently
you, Whick. This
inferior.
is well known.
I understand.
Damn.
Let me give you an example. To me, when it comes to relationships, men are inherently inferior. no fault of their own. Nothing they can do to change that. They were born that way. It's okay.
You tweeted
but
that
they
out.
are
That's the,
inherently.
No, Whick.
That's the
let's just-
gayest thing you've said all night.
Let's put the full stop there. Let's say that like you've tweeted that out. Like, yeah, in your opinion, men are inferior when it comes to relationships. Like, I would.
With me.
You have to.
Yes,
you
with
have to.
me.
Yeah, of course, but you have to. Like, you have to. Well, it's not with you anymore. If you decide to tweet it, then you're kind of putting it out
No,
there. So,
that's
like,
what I would tweet. I would
at
say
that
when it comes
point-
to me choosing a romantic partner, men are just out the gate. They're inherently inferior. I'm not going to choose them.
No, you should say men are inherently inferior in relationships and tweet that out right
If
now.
you pay me enough, I will.
Well,
Okay.
you said it on public.
So you're saying there's a
put your mouth
chance.
is, Just do it.
And does Connor's father-in-law count? Is he one of those?
I'll introduce you. You can find out. So hold up, but the inherent.
Well, I mean, hang on. Wait. You say he's like really deeply intertwined in your life. Can you just give him a call now?
I could. The problem is he'd actually pick up. So like, I don't
Do
like,
it.
Yeah,
Do it.
No,
I don't know if we
good.
want to.
Like there's actually like a 95% chance he'd pick up and he'd be like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, so yeah, pass on that.
He's a keeper.
Yeah. So okay. So anyways, the point being like, fuck me. Listen, the inherently versus potentially. You're right. If I wanted to avoid the wrath of lefties, I should have used the potential or these things are correlated, not caused, and people struggle in order to overcome their difficult circumstances, and we should valorize their efforts.
No, not even. No. It's so much simpler than that. Just don't make a statement to the effect that, hey, if you have this thing in your profile, yeah, you're no good. And that was the direct implication. That was the implication
it
of what you were
was.
saying.
But let me ask the real question, because this might sting a little bit. So is social media in general, and Twitter in particular, a social refuge for people who have bad relationships with their families, namely their fathers?
It's a social refuge for literally everyone.
No, but I'm just saying there are grass touchers.
Pixie,
They do exist.
Twitter is
There are
the
grass touchers
social-
who exist.
Okay.
I have a great relationship. I had a great relationship.
Well, I
with
want
my father. He's
Pixie
dead
to
now,
answer this
but,
question.
like,
I want Chris to answer this question. I want
I
Josiah to answer this
respond to that.
question.
Okay. This also kind of goes back to why I don't think like the parent criteria is necessarily the best one, and it's because like I honestly would like unironically think a better judge of my moral character would be the fact that I use fucking Twitter than the fact that like me and my family like have contentious relationships sometimes. I am not like I'm being unironic here. I think if you want to judge a person like more on their character, you'd be closer on that than you would on the fact that like.
But are those behaviors correlated? So are your bad relationships with your family correlated with your overuse of Twitter, which is an indictment of your moral character?
I mean, being American is correlated with a lot of things. I don't know what the logic is here exactly.
I want Pixie to answer the question. Pixie, go.
Well, basically, it's the same like line of logic, right? There's like a lot of things that could be correlated to an overuse of Twitter. Sure, parental problems might be one of them, but also like if you don't have any parental problems and you're still like on Twitter a lot, that doesn't necessarily indicate like developmental fault. It means that you're like a fucking schizo who doesn't have enough of a life, right? So that's why I think that is a clear indication of your behaviors and your actions with other people than like, oh, a relationship with your family that might be good, might be bad. There's a lot of factors that could play into why it might be good, why it might be bad. It might be even better if you have a bad one, depending on who they are. I just think there's better markers for how a partner.
Here's a question for you, Connor. By the same metric, so black people in America, I believe, have the highest poverty rate at 19.5%. Would you not, therefore, date a black person?
I mean, I wouldn't date a black person because I'm a little racist, but that's fine. My chat likes that. No, but I would say that the correlated issues, I would say, would stem back to socioeconomics, and so I would be red flagged on that. So I would actually look.
You'd be red flagged on a dating partner being black?
Yeah, I would. Okay. I would look at their relationships with their family. I would look at their relationships with their community. I would look at where they lived. I would look at their socioeconomic conditions. I would look at all that kind of shit, and I would be looking out for red flags, of course.
Yeah, but we're doing the same thing again. You've said that yes, you'd like look at them some kind of way because they're black, and then you've described a whole bunch of things that like might be more present in black community, but they aren't inherent to it by any stretch of the imagination. And like the whole point that we were trying to make earlier, and what like we keep looping around, is the idea that like we don't make relationship decisions on like the basis of like the statistical analysis that we do after like a few days on Twitter. Like that's not how humans tend to interact with one another. You meet someone, you see how you vibe, and generally speaking, you see if your values are more or less aligned. And like that is kind of like the only thing really that matters at the end of the day.
Okay, but at the same time, like what we're still escaping pretty much what I said in a very aggressive and memey way. You take variables, you use them as conscious things that you track, see if they correlate with variables that you know correlate with those things, and then you make evaluative decisions based off of that. So
you're
for instance,
describing
like,
you're describing just the natural just the natural dating process, right? Let me try and if we're doing like the more
and I'm
memey
saying
thing,
that
then
the
let me-
natural
let me-
dating process is perfectly
but
fine.
no one disagrees with that. The problem was with saying that like when you say you should marry X, Y, and Z, then the implication is that if the person doesn't fit into X, Y, and Z, then there is something wrong with them. They are like inferior in one way or another, or there is like some kind of a problem. Like let me just I want to take us on a journey for a minute or two, and I want you, Connor, and I want Whick to like pay attention to this, just because of like how just because Whick as well because of what he said. So like just imagine this, right? Just like think that like we've been friends for years, right? Like we vibe, we meet in the evening, right? Like as you can see on the screen right now, your hands are intertwined with my toes. We have a real connection. I'm wearing the thigh highs
Jesus.
that you've gifted me. We're sharing our favorite Hubba Bubba extra long, okay, limited edition Coca-Cola flavor. And I tell you, look, Connor,
I can only get so erect. Come on.
I'm gonna pop the question, right? Me and Sandeya are getting to a point where I want to marry them up. We have excellent relationship. I love them lots. I'm worried, however, that the relationship with their father is very bad. And that is all the information that you're given currently, right? Like we're still connected on this very, very personal level. Would this be a deal breaker or would it not be a deal breaker?
Okay, this would be a deal breaker for me because our toes are fucking intertwined and you're wearing fucking thigh highs.
No, not
You can-
toes.
you have
His
jeans.
hands.
No, those
No,
look like
his
toes
hands
to
and
me.
toes.
No, those look like toes, and that looks more intimate than I want it to be. And then not only that, you have demon horns. So already you have like several red flags for me that like I think that I should be dating Zendaya
Yeah, but what about-
instead
I
of
will.
you.
I will
No,
answer
not
the question
Zendaya,
honestly.
Sandeya,
I will
okay?
answer the
This is-
question honestly for you, Chris. I won't meme.
Yeah, that's
I
what I'm saying.
won't
Like
meme. I
Zendaya's
promise.
like Zendaya's the singer, and like my Sunday is more into like political theory.
But Chris,
You have excellent
I
taste.
think that you would agree that depending on this relationship that I find out, right, after I've dated this person for a while, I'm already in love, right? I'm already getting serious, etc. There are conditions there are things I can find out about them that would be deal breakers, and one of them could be, depending on the severity, the relationship with their family. So if we've been together 2 years, we're thinking about getting married next month, right? And we're holding hands, watching TV, and suddenly, out of the blue, this man I've never seen before bursts into my door, starts yelling and screaming about how I finally found you. Why are you and all this crazy talk, right? And things like that. And later I found out after we called the cops to get him out of there, oh, that's my dad. Yeah, he'll do that sometimes. He's kind of crazy. He just comes in. I hate it, and I wish he'd stop. I think it's okay for me to reevaluate. Do I want to deal with this for the rest of my fucking life?
Okay, see, but this is where I feel like I feel incredibly strongly on this. I feel like genuinely, if you've been with someone for 2 years and you feel like this type of a toes intertwined with hands type of connection that we're having right now, and like you've just found out that their father went fucking ballistic on your front door, and they've just told you they wish this wouldn't happen, but they don't know how to deal with it, and your first instinct is like, well, maybe I should reevaluate like my place in this relationship. Then you haven't grown up enough to be in these kinds of relationships.
It won't be my first reaction, but it will be a reaction. And to say that this would not have an effect on your decision-making process is just alien to me.
The point,
Obviously,
is that the claim isn't that it wouldn't have an effect. The claim
Yes,
was,
which-
at least my
and if
particular
it
issue
has an
with
effect-
Counterpoints tweet was to
if it
do with
has
the
an
you
effect-
should.
If it has an effect, right, then we have to recognize that there is, for individuals, a right answer and a wrong answer. Okay, and for some individuals, and in fact, would say for most individuals, especially if you're going to have kids and things like that, it might be best not to deal with that. It would put your family at risk.
Chris, I want to
The
address you
issue
directly.
here is Yeah,
Go ahead,
I'll just clarify to Wick real quick, and then I'll shut up just so like we can have a back and forth. The thing is though, Wick, like we're here to gangbang Connor over a tweet, and the nuance that you're exploring right now was not in that tweet. So like the reason why I posed the question in the way I did is because I'm telling you that you have the limited information that I've given you. So like, would you say that you should not date that person? As in, is this a deal breaker?
Well,
this
the
is all
answer
that
is
you know so
context.
far.
Answer would be it would depend.
Yeah,
on
but
the
that's
context.
the criticism that everyone's levying at Counterpoints. That's like literally it. The answer is context.
Chris,
yeah.
let me address you directly because I think I can just admit to something,
toast on the table or toast off the
and then
table?
also say I still hold my perspectives. Wait, are we holding hands on top of the table and then holding toes underneath the table?
Okay, you know what, you geriatric fuck? I'm gonna make this bigger for you. Okay, there is a big ass fucking table. You've got your hands, and they're intertwined with my toes, and I'm wearing the thigh highs that you've given me.
Oh God, that's what it is. So it's my hands and it's your toes.
Yes,
you didn't know that?
Dude. Okay, fuck yeah, because we don't know each other. So like, here's
that's
the thing.
More
I hit
intimate
the
than our toes being
so
intertwined.
like this is it's because of the skinny legs threw you off. Yeah, so like let me explain real quick. I hit the gym quite a lot, but I fucking hate the leg day. So I'm basically built like an ice cream cone. Like I'm very much like Chad at the top, but femboy at the bottom.
This is where we're talking about how context matters, because it's green flag that you hit the gym, but then it's red flag that you don't do legs. So like you got to understand there's like correlations and rules have exceptions. And that's what I was going to say.
In the back for a reason.
Okay, but at the same time, if you said, I think that people should date people who take care of their body and work out, then I would instantaneously agree with you. But then if you came back and you said, but the person that you're dating doesn't do legs, I would be like, that's a problem, and I'm going to have to factor that into my decision making. But let's just stop memeing for a second, because I think I can solve this entire like rhetorical whatever issue. So you are
just staying on the table until you've convinced me.
That's fine. I don't know if I'm going to. You are right. I made a statement trying to dunk on a random person by using correlative criteria in order to call my wife an honorable woman through invoking the honor of her father. You're right. It's misogynistic, it's patriarchal, it's cis heteronormative, it's based in white Christian normie values. I did that. People said as a result, I wanted to have sex with my father-in-law. I took issue with that. I thought that that was an improper inference based off of what I said. And I do think that he is a good man, but I don't like penises or male buttholes. So I did not want to do that. And as a result, because I feel like lefties correlate with degenerate behavior, sexual promiscuity, and generally speaking, not having good relationships with their family, I maligned 25% of the adult population by insinuating that they had bad relationships with their father and therefore were undeserving of love. You caught me. I was being mean on the internet.
Yeah, but I'm going to be real. As soon as you've said that, like, I'm right. Like this is all I cared about. Like it's a fucking victory. It's a dub. We got him, boys. We can go home now, happy. We have achieved victory here today.
Okay.
And also, can I just like ask, just out of pure curiosity, because you keep saying that like your wife's honorable. Like, how many sword fights has she won?
Actually, she is quite the sportswoman. She can throw a baseball like a fucking champ. She can fight. She can throw down. She's a tough lady.
Okay, so I haven't fenced in a while, but I think there's an easy way to solve all of this, and I just need to fight your wife in single combat.
Do you know what? Yeah. President Sunday, unfortunately, she would really take you up on that. So, like,
Yeah, but you've got to remember.
What do you mean, unfortunately? If we raise the money, so I saw you raising money. I saw you raising money to fight Kingston. Why don't we raise money for your wife versus President Sunday in a fencing match?
No,
President Sunday, what state do you live in?
I wouldn't want to humiliate Counterpoint.
So you were running away from this potential fight?
I am.
Oh no, it's
going to be running away from this potential fight. We could have made so much money. We could have made so much money.
We could have turned it into an entire series of events. You could fence, you could, MMA bout, you could do all
some sort of decathlon.
Things. Yeah,
nice,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Klingon sword.
Okay, she might be in chat. I'll ask her. So all right. So hold up. So I'm conceding that I was a poor sport, and I was saying something mean on the internet, maligning 25% of the adult population. But I also want people to understand, because there's probably in your guys' audience who don't like the way that I post on Twitter, which is fine. What I would say is I am making serious points, but don't take everything I say on Twitter literally true. You know what I'm saying?
I refuse.
Okay, all right.
Are you being poetic?
Then Yeah, I
It was a haiku, okay?
No, I was. Yes, I maligned 25% of the population, many of whom people I think are probably just fine people. But I
Hey,
was
I
being
have
Do it
mean.
in haiku form next time.
He
I
was
think
being
that'd
a
be
limmer
fun.
dick.
Pixie,
Maybe.
finish your point, then Josiah. But then I have questions from the audience.
Finish your point. She spoke for like 0.3 seconds. She hasn't even started making
No,
her points.
I'm saying
Just
when I
mouthing the
say
first
that,
syllable.
stop. When I say that, what I'm meaning is for the rest of you not to interrupt her. Go ahead.
What I was saying is that I
Yeah,
agree
that's
with the
what you
idea that if you're being poetic, you should have done it in a poetic form more. Like you should have made it in haiku. I think that would have really gotten your point across. And
Haiku.
I think, like I'm not very good at haiku.
But that's cultural appropriation. What are you
It
what are you
is.
doing?
I am a man, and I'm not good at poetry. So,
I think you should try.
Not good
You
at
should
tweeting either,
expand.
eh?
hey, listen, I got 20K followers on Twitter. Okay.
Hey, I am one of them, okay?
Let's be real though. I do get an average of 12 likes unless it's a banger, but I do have 20,000 followers on Twitter. So.
Well, way to shame me. Okay, let's see. So, this is from Old Man Laundry. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Oh no.
I was surprised to see you in Crossfire by Lauren Southern, which seemed more like a Mike Cernovich pup piece than anything. Questions. Are you uncomfortable being affiliated with people like Cernovich or Posobiec or the cast of the film?
I'm not but I have my own views. So for instance, I helped also. Not only did I help Lauren with Crossfire, but I also helped her with Infringed, which is supposed to come out this summer, which is a Tim Pool production. I am not a fan of every one of Tim Pool's takes. I am not a fan of every one of Jack Posobiec's takes. I'm not a fan of Cernovich's takes. Cernovich had the worst fucking take I've ever heard, which he was saying that shopping carts are not a heuristic for like a good society, and I would fist fight over that shit. So no, I can be associated with people who have bad takes. It's fine.
Can you elaborate on that?
Can I just
People
jump
who
in
put
real
back
quick with
shopping carts.
just
Who
what
put
an
back shopping
absolute
carts.
giga chad chatter though. Like comes into Whick stream, doesn't listen to a fucking word on the panel, asks a question that has nothing to do with what we've spoken about, refuses to elaborate and leaves. Like I respect people
there's
like
more.
that, you know.
There's more.
Okay, there's more coming. All right, I'm sorry.
Laundry,
Fire
okay,
away.
I want to point this out. I had the same reaction when what Sunday said when you read Old Man Laundry, because he blocked me after I made a YouTube video explaining the actual like facts
He's
behind.
here. We could bring him on.
Well,
His machinations are beyond the comprehension of mere mortals. I don't
Yeah.
think-
Are the
I'm just
saying,
references
he's
to
here,
Lauren
we
Southern?
could bring him on if
Are
you
the
really
references
wanted.
to Lauren Southern? Are they films or documentaries? What are they? You
They're
said
documentaries.
Infringed. Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. So the second question: were you compensated to be in that film?
I was not, but I was compensated for Infringed for travel and security expenses.
Oh, you hack fraud.
And
Just bought out.
how did you end up
It's a show.
in, I guess, those films?
So, funny story. I did not know Lauren at all. Somebody jumped into my comments and said that she was making a documentary on police brutality and police reform and all that kind of stuff. I emailed her. She said, "Yeah, that sounds interesting," and then I helped her, and that was it. And then we've kind of been internet pals since.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if you literally just were introduced to this person through this project, how did you go from there to giving us all the juicy details on her affair with Destiny afterwards?
All right. The affair or whatever is an emotional relationship that got deep during a difficult time in her life. And I didn't like the fact that a lot of people were memeing that they had a child together or had like a
But how
super
did you
intimate
know? How did you get involved in this? That's what I'm curious about.
So
Also, a follow-up question: do you think Destiny would choose a girl from a two-parent household or one-parent household?
I think Destiny would absolutely pick a woman from a fucking single parent household, which makes Lauren a bad choice. God damn it. Sorry. Sunday, you had a follow-up question.
Yeah. How the fuck do you enter the equation? Why are we getting this information from you? That's what
Because
I'm curious about.
Lauren and I became internet friends. So we talk, we disagree on things. We don't like some of each other's political perspectives. We like some of each other's political perspectives.
Just late night conversations about how she just can't get over the damned smile on that little gnome.
Nobody
she
in
was
particular says.
Yeah, she was very upset that they were letting brown and black people into Europe, and that was like a very passionate thing for her. So we talked about, Middle Eastern, North African immigration, and police shootings, and brutality, and philosophy, and doing drugs, and Jordan Peterson, and all that kind of stuff.
So not having seen the police brutality documentary, where did you and Lauren fall? Were you pro or anti?
I mean, I'm pro police reform. I think there's a shitload of things that we can do better, and I also think that there's a shitload of like community engagement things that we could do in order to make law enforcement and the community better. Absolutely.
So anti police brutality.
Largely, there's exceptions.
I have one more question, right, from the audience at least.
Is that all?
Same person.
Wick's chat. Come on, show
You
up.
and I-
Get you some money.
You and I talked a lot about Mr. Girl. This is from Old Man Laundry again. Keep in mind. You and I talked a lot about Mr. Girl when my documentary about him came out, and we were basically on the same page about him. But you seemed to do a 180 and associated with him several times after that. What happened? You don't think he's a vile creep and abuser anymore? I want to like you, Connor, but these are huge red flags for me.
I'm okay with having huge red flags. No, I think Max has a lot of red flags from my perspective, but I also think that he's a artist, a weird artist. And for instance, I think he just did. There's a Clips channel that I don't know if he's associated with, in 2 long form essays about psychotherapy. And what was the other one? The psychotherapy one I liked a lot. But he released one on psychotherapy and also on transgender issues or whatever, and I thought they were phenomenal. So lunatics and bad people can have interesting takes that are worthy of consideration. You don't have to think they're morally good actors to consume their perspectives.
Yeah, I'm a great aficionado of Carl Schmitt, who is a Nazi, so I can sign off on that.
Fair enough. Okay.
Back to Hunter Biden's penis?
Yeah, we might have to go back to Hunter Biden's penis, but I wanted to give a chance, one more chance, right, for anyone else here who had any issues, right? And if you are in chat and you have issues that you want to confront counterpoints about, super chat 'em, throw me some money, and I'll read them to you. But anything else that Pixie that you have problems with counterpoints?
No, I think overall, I just think there's better criteria to judge a person instead of just like statistically like what's possible. Just judge their actual actions regarding other people. I think that's the best criteria in my opinion, and that's it.
Fair enough. Sunday, got anything for
What's
him?
that? Yeah, what's the model on the top left shelf there? It's a little bit blurry. I can't see it, but it's big.
So I have a Xiphon, a Storm Raptor, and a Orc. What is this? This is a Storm Talon gunship. No, but it's a Stormhawk Interceptor kit bashed with an Orc Flyer in order to be an A10 Warthog for the Warhammer 40,000 universe.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Chris, what you got?
Yeah, I think I'll just wrap up on the note of what was said earlier. I think I got missed out on this series of questions because Sunday was just establishing his dominance. But you've asked why do we jump on Connor having like an incredibly just objectively bad dog shit take about relationships on Twitter, but we're not like this critical about foreign policy. And like from my perspective, it's like incredibly simple. Like I am a fucking extraordinary boyfriend, but I know nothing about Biden. I can speak to relationships and everything tangential to how to be healthy in one of those. If I speak about Biden, I'm going to give you like the same level of analysis that you can get by doing 30 seconds of fucking Googling yourself. It's like, I'm just going to stick to my thing, you know? I can talk about his penis, but like that's, you know.
Nobody denies
there's a lot to talk about.
For that one, yeah.
Wick, very quickly, I got a massive super chat because they will not donate to you, but they really do want to ask, are you single?
Me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I don't give my status out. I don't talk about my personal shit.
That's a yes.
Sorry. If you give me money like specifically, but no, I don't give out my relationship status.
Thank you, No Truth. Appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. Josiah, I know you've been sitting here patiently, right? Very cordially, just twiddling your thumbs. So I know you had more issues, so.
Well, no, like I said, so what's funny is Connor and I are going to be litigating this and other issues on Sunday I didn't realize it was going to be a 2v2 until I got the DM, but Pisco and I versus him and Rob. So I'm already I've got the Tylenol in arm's reach, ready for that. But basically, I mean, I still don't know quite where you stand, Connor, in terms of if you think that that President Biden or the Biden administration were like politically influencing, like in an active way, the decisions, or if you're agnostic on the issue, or if you think that perhaps the officials involved just like kind of proactively took a decision that was politicized, in terms of the charging decisions. I'm not sure where you are with that. I don't know how far you are.
I would subpoena. Okay, so I would subpoena Merrick Garland and Weiss's personal and public devices, emails, and cell phone numbers. And then I would also financially audit Joseph Biden, his brother, and Hunter. And I would track all the money.
So we're combined, just so I understand, we're talking about kind of the broader issue, basically, of not just in terms of the plea deals and David Weiss, the investigation into Hunter Biden, but the larger question of President Biden's connection to Hunter Biden's foreign dealings and whether or not any of them were inappropriate for Biden himself to have engaged in.
That's the only reason why I care, and this is why I instantly concede on Trump being a piece of shit with foreign influence. Yes, Whick.
Two more questions, I guess, from people who've reached out to me, from the right wing side of things, because I've had conversations with a few people who don't think you're right wing at all, who don't consider you conservative by any means, and they want to know, right? First of all, do you consider yourself center right, right leaning, etc.? That's the first question.
Yeah, I follow the philosophy of Edmund Burke.
Noted. Second, right? What are some of your policy positions that you would consider right wing?
Well, guns.
I hear a lot of cultural positions, right?
Let's talk about Burke sometime, Connor. Let's talk about Burke sometime. I got a bone.
I think the biggest one for him is just going to be racism, though.
Yeah, I just like being racist. That's the main one. So no, I am like relatively. I am reactionary. I am anti-leftist. By reactionary, I just mean like I do have like a reflexive disdain for like leftism, progressivism, communism, and socialism. When it comes to state, like the problem is I would be a libertarian if I wasn't also a statist. The problem with libertarians is it's become synonymous with anarcho-capitalist, and as a result, like I just can't. I can't fuck with libertarians anymore. I really do think that they've committed some of the greatest philosophical cringe in the world.
I want to, before you go too far, I want to give Pixie an outro. She needs to go. So I want to give her a chance to tell people where they can find her and what she does. Go ahead.
Hi, just follow me on PXIE or on Twitter, Pixie Love. I like debating about random stuff, politics, relationship advice, everything under the sun. Thank you so much for having me on, Whick. I really appreciate it.
Pixie,
bye.
Nice to meet you. You should talk to me sometime.
I'd be down to talk. Yeah, we'll set something up on DMs. Okay.
Cool.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll send you a picture of my father-in-law. Okay. So no. Philosophically, I follow Burke. I do think that like if you consider Jordan Peterson right.
Okay, let me ask. Aside from guns,
stop while you're ahead.
Okay,
don't do it.
Stop. Everyone stop, because this isn't really answering my question, nor is it answering their question, right?
But it's interesting.
I understand it's interesting, but I'm trying to get the answer to the question.
Aren't you an entertainer, Whick? Let the man cook.
People pay me money, and I ask their questions,
They'll pay you
and I give
more
them
if it's
answers.
good.
Okay?
Yeah. Okay, go on.
So, again, right, and I just want to cut to the heart of this. What current policy positions that are on the table or being debated now, aside from guns, that are conservative, that you support?
I want to hear more about Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, so I'm pro-American hegemony. I'm pro-American militarism. I'm pro-American law enforcement. I would just start citing
Grim Reaper, cool dude, a little bit misunderstood. Yeah,
he's a little misunderstood. So I would say those, and then if they're arguing about like economics, if that's like their main thing is that I'm like center-left economically in the United States, I think I would just concede that. I am for more economic redistribution, and I am for a state hand in facilitating a healthy society. But those are two conservative ends. I think the state has to be invoked to create a mildly conservative society. And if you're anti-statist, I think you're a fucking idiot.
No, you're still a pinko.
That's fine.
Based. $5 from Big Dong Daddy Dong. People's names.
Yes.
Counterpoints. Have you tried building Gundam model kits, a Gunpla, you would probably like it. Also, Wick, Katie is horrible, and my ears blew out.
So
Katie's not on this panel, so.
yes. So I have a successful YouTube channel. My political channel is basically starting from scratch in the past like 6 months to a year because I had to separate out the channels. I can only dedicate myself to one fandom, and if I was going to dedicate myself to Gundam, what I would do instead is play Tau in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and then proxy Titanfall and Gundam models into the lineup.
Noted.
It feels so weird to be on a panel as a VTuber and get like out nerded. There's just something about this that's magical to me. Like I'm not even real, and I can't fucking keep up with the conversation.
Which Gundam universe are we talking here?
Orphans, Blood Orphans.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Oh, that's such.
Wait, what do you mean? Hold on, that reference I didn't understand. What's your problem with Blood Orphans?
I don't have a problem with Blood Orphans. As a matter of fact,
no, not you, Sunday. I'm fighting the lefty now.
Oh.
Oh, it's just it's reduced. It's lost the soul of what Gundam was in the original series, and what was it called? Char's Counterattack. It's just no.
No, bro, that's the same answer that like when you ask like very fucking heavy Republicans like what's the problem with gay people, and they go like, oh, the soul of America, the sanctity of the
Blood
flag.
Orphans is like Blood Orphans is like the squats of Gundam. Okay.
It's also supposed to be like very morally cynical. Like at least that's what I've been told. So
yeah, that completely misses the. However.
Okay. I will say, right, that I want to get back to the Josiah thing because I want to give Josiah some time here. But overall, gang, you guys had huge, very acidic takes on Twitter. I brought you on to fight, and you were like pussycats, and you're like meow meow. Oh, we're gonna walk everything back. Come on.
Can I say that? No, I appreciate this. Sunday and I do not see eye to eye on a healthy chunk of things. As a matter of fact, he's been fairly hostile to a healthy chunk of people that I like and respect. So I'm happy that our first outing together was relatively
Is this
charitable.
your first time?
Okay, I do have friction. Okay, but Connor, I do have like a tempestuous relationship with my father, just to be clear going forward. I don't want to be under misapprehension.
Okay, understood. I'll use it against you, emotionally.
Fair enough. Okay,
okay,
Josiah, I'm gonna unleash the beast here. Sorry.
Well, I'm not entirely sure how much of a beast there is between us because Connor and I usually stay pretty civil. I'll say this: I don't think there's evidence of a grand conspiracy here. I don't think you think that. So, like I said, I know like Rob probably believes that there's.
But there's enough for me. So for instance, like if you just want me to walk you through it real quick, because I do think that these investigations are aligned. Okay, and let me just walk you through the Durham report real quick, because maybe you could take issue with some of the things that were mentioned there. So, my understanding, based off of the report from Durham and the open hearings that I listened to, which was about 3 hours, is that there was a whole bunch of problems with the warrants process as a result. Indulge me for the next minute. So, what happened was Hillary Clinton, Brennan, the CIA director, he briefed Obama, Biden, and the head of the FBI. A few years before 2016, basically saying, "Hey, we know Hillary Clinton's strategy. It's been leaked. She's going to try to tie Trump to Russia." They briefed it. They put it in a memorandum. Peter Strzok, the head of Crossfire Hurricane, received a memorandum stating it to that effect. What happened was an Australian diplomat allegedly heard George Papadopoulos, or whatever the fuck his name was, talking shit at a bar in Washington, D.C., saying, hey, the Russians are trying to give us like 30,000 emails from Hillary Clinton saying that, that's going to make her look bad during the election. We're going to use it. He was not a Trump staffer at the time, but he was aspiring to be a Trump staffer and was associated with the Trump people, so he was trying to get in good with them, so he was trying to do that. What happened was that was the impetus for the investigation. What Durham said was that they never spoke with the Australian. They barely spoke with George Papadopoulos or whatever. They got exculpatory information from him when they were investigating him, but they still decided to open up a full-throated investigation without any other evidence besides that and the Steele dossier. That was the beginning of the investigation. So as a result, they're jumping to an investigation of the Trump people, but they don't have sufficient evidence from a stereotypical thing, which to him is an indication of bias. Not only is that an indication of bias, but then while they're moving through the investigative steps, relationships. One of their targets is I forget this guy's fucking name. It will come back to me, but it's basically somebody who works for the Trump campaign, and he's known to have like a whole bunch of friendly relationships. The FBI
Talking about Manafort, maybe?
No, it wasn't Manafort, because Manafort
No.
actually got convicted. This was somebody who didn't get convicted. So they say, hey, you can't open up. Yeah, it might be Carter Page, Christian Valeris. So we're going to open up an investigation, but you have to make sure that there is not a CIA asset first, or else we can't, open up a FISA investigation against them, because that like contradicts between the institutions. The FBI faked the warrant. They literally photoshopped a letter from the CIA saying that he was an asset of the CIA. They photoshopped it so they could do the FISA investigation anyways. They launched the FISA investigation against Carter Page, I believe, and then they received exculpatory information where they basically realized that he wasn't a Russian asset. He was basically the opposite of one. He was like a good faith interlocutor doing his best. They omitted that exculpatory information, which they're required in order to continue the warrants process, from the warrants process, so they could keep the warrants open. I don't want to even say finally, because there's more bullshit about this, but Peter Strzok got caught red-handed, basically saying that he was individually going to prevent Trump from seizing office. So that was a whole fucking ordeal. And then finally, they were saying that the Steele dossier, they tried... Sunday, we can hear your book.
Yeah, it's the ASMR. I'm adding to the marketability of Wick's panel.
Okay, very rude. Anyways, so final shtick, and then I'll let you respond. But basically what they were saying is they tried to corroborate the Steele dossier. They were not able to corroborate it at all, and yet they kept using it as justification for the FISA warrants, and according to Durham, they would not have been able to obtain those warrants if they had actually been honest and transparent in the investigative process.
Yeah, so again, and I know I kind of said this in the DM with Connor, or with you and Pisco and Rob, but there's obviously a lot to cover here. I don't question the conclusions of the Durham report with respect to the multiple errors and issues with Crossfire Hurricane and its ensuing investigations. Although, again, just to be clear, you don't challenge the convictions, for example, that Robert Mueller successfully got during the course of that investigation, right?
I don't challenge Flynn. I don't challenge Manafort. As a matter of fact, Manafort is potentially more damning than what they caught him with. So, for instance, if I remember correct, I'll try to rant briefly. Flynn was basically advocating for people overseas that he didn't disclose, and as a result, he was working as a foreign agent without disclosing it. He lied to officials about that, and then he was subsequently convicted. None of that's in contest. And then Paul Manafort, I think likewise, had like foreign people that he was working with, and even disclosed private polling information that's sensitive to Russian intelligence in order to try to help them target their information campaign. So, for me, while it might not be collusion where like Paul Manafort and Donald Trump are like, yes, Russian intelligence services do this in order to affect the election, that's enough of a buddy thing that it makes me uncomfortable. And I don't care that he's convicted.
Yeah, so again, I'm not entirely sure what we disagree on. Number one, the Steele dossier was not the predicate for the investigation, which I don't think, I want to be clear,
you
don't agree that that's... Right, so there was, as Durham concedes, and as Inspector Horowitz concedes, and as the Republican-led Special Select Committee on Intelligence conceded back in 2020, led by Marco Rubio, there was an ample predicate for at least a preliminary investigation by the FBI. Your issue, and I completely understand it, I do not dispute it, is that in the opinion, the professional opinion of Durham and Horowitz, is there wasn't a sufficient basis to go from a preliminary investigation to a full investigation. And I don't mean to quibble, but given what we learned from the investigation, to me, that part is not, that doesn't undermine or mitigate the crimes of the Trump campaign and the Trump administration with respect to their inappropriate ties to Russia. Furthermore, even with what Durham concluded in the report, he didn't recommend any substantive systemic charges or changes to the FBI. The FISA process is under review as we speak. They're constantly trying to make changes to the FISA process because it's a bipartisan recognition that the FISA process was abused and that it has numerous errors with it. So I'm not entirely sure what we disagree on. I just don't think it's an earth-shattering scandal. As far as the Hunter Biden and President Biden stuff is concerned, my issue is this. So Number one, there is no evidence implicating President Biden, period. Republicans to this day, when pressed by other Fox News hosts, like be it Peter Doocy or whoever else, like, okay, what's your evidence, James Comer, implicating President Biden? They're like, well, we don't have it yet. So that's a big fucking concession. They are desperate to find something, number one. Number two, evidence suggesting that implicates Biden or the insinuation that President Biden has been involved somehow in some sort of inappropriate relationship. That was rebutted by Burisma's own CEO, who told the FBI, we've never had any contact with then Vice President Biden. Then Vice President Biden didn't do anything to help us in terms of our business. And the only thing alleging that is an unverified report made by a confidential human source to the FBI, which is basically the equivalent of the Steele dossier. So if the Steele dossier would be insufficient to continue an investigation into Donald Trump, why is something comparable to the Steele dossier, unverified allegations, why should that be the basis to investigate the sitting president, Joe Biden?
Because you don't just look at allegations and then say there's nothing here and then move on. As you pointed out, you investigate them. And it seems like, sorry, Whick, what were you saying?
No, in my chat, they're calling Josiah a leftist Trumper. You were literally a leftist Trumper. That is
okay. So hold
a leftist Trumper. I don't know what that means.
So hold on.
It means
I need to address this.
You're doing the there is no proof kind of.
Okay, so let's address this. The entire accusation of Durham and of the people who have called out these systemic issues is because we're not looking at them in a vacuum. And you say, so one of the things that you said that I don't think carries any weight is you're saying like, well, the general inspector already looked at it and said that if they went through the warrant process, or they should have gone through the warrant process properly, and since they did it, they're recommending the reforms for XYZ ABC, and therefore Durham didn't shake any new ground. Yeah, but the reason why that's true is because there was a warrants process that they either lied or lied through omission in order to continue the warrants process. And not only that, they were very hot to trot, which shows an institutional bias. Just because they were correct doesn't mean that there isn't an institutional bias. And then on top of that, what should be happening if we were actually, I feel like, honest interlocutors and not, political partisans, is you should say, okay, we were hot to trot on our side of the investigation. Let's be also aggressive as possible against the Biden family. And instead, what I get is, well, there's no evidence. You're not even looking for the fucking evidence. The IRS.
What are you talking about? Republicans have been investigating for they've this is.
Josiah,
there have been four.
No, stop. Let me finish. Let me finish before you say what you say, because if you say what you say, I'm gonna have fucking heartburn and maybe a migraine, and I might have a fucking cardiovascular event on this stream.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
So let
me
now
finish. You're really teeing me up.
Yeah. So let's finish what I'm going to fucking say. You can't tell me they haven't found anything when literally this week, 2 IRS investigators said we had felony level charges against the Biden family. Prosecutors under Weiss said that this should be submitted as felonies in the districts of California and in the districts. I lost y'all. Can y'all still hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah,
okay.
We can hear you.
So we knew that this was prosecutable in not Canada, might as well be Canada, in California and in Delaware or whatever the fuck.
DC.
And Weiss and the head of the fucking California place basically declined to charge anything despite everybody below them believing that these were felonies. You cannot tell me that there isn't systemic fucking people putting their fingers on the scales for the Biden family when literally the step under the people who would be influenced are saying, yes, there was. And then on top of that, to analogize this, I'll shut up after this, to analogize this, you can't say that that's not happening in the FBI if we have people who are saying that it is happening in the FBI.
So number one, it's people in the IRS, not the FBI. Number one. Number two,
yes,
Ziegler.
I'm talking about Durham. Durham is saying there's an analogous situation in the FBI.
Well, I don't think it's analogous. What he is saying is that there was too much of an.
In a second.
Do you want me to go on? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So again, the situation with Hunter Biden, because again we're going all over the place. These are just they're not even really connected, and so it's hard to like bounce back and forth. The Hunter Biden situation, again, The whistleblowers made their allegations, and if the Republicans in Congress want to subpoena David Weiss, the attorney in question, and ask him, so be it. I'm simply saying that's not a sufficient basis to do what the Republicans have been doing, which is to say that Joe Biden is guilty of crimes. Then when you ask them for evidence, they say, well, we haven't come up with anything. Now, if you want to say the investigation's in progress, so be it. But this is the 4th investigation into Hunter Biden, number 1. Number 2, I think it's even the allegations which have been made by the whistleblowers. They have made no allegations that Merrick Garland or David Weiss or President Biden were acting in a political way. Like
Yes,
they very specific. No, they have not.
Yes, they have. I watched their testimony yesterday. They
what do you think?
Testified yesterday.
They testified that what? That Weiss came.
They testified that they were in a room with Weiss. That Weiss said that publicly Weiss was saying that he had the charge. I promise I'm trying to fix my shit. Just give me a second. But since the audio is here, we're gonna keep rolling. They said that publicly Weiss said that he had all the charging authority, that he could ask for the charging authority in California if he wanted, and that basically he was saying that he had a good relationship with Merrick Garland, and Merrick Garland wasn't pressuring him one way or the other. They said that in closed-door meetings, Weiss said that he didn't have the authority in order to do it, that he was not the decision-maker for the investigation, and on top of that, he would basically, he would not necessarily commit to doing the felony charges despite everybody else in the room saying that felonies were committed that were provable.
There is a political number 1. That doesn't mean that there's a political motivation behind it. Number 2,
how?
Sunday.
Very, very quickly. I got nothing to add to this. Can I take my leave?
Yeah, you can peace. We'll see you later.
All right. Thanks for having me, Connor.
Before you go, Sunday, I have a big overlap with your community, and I keep being pestered by people in mine to reach out to you. Are your DMs open? Because we are building that bridge. That motherfucker's getting created.
Do this off my
Sure, I think so, yeah.
Am I interrupting you on your own show? No, right? Yeah. Just let me have a thing here.
All right, well,
yeah,
Sunday,
I'm available on Twitter and Discord. Just let me know. I'm in a Whick service. You can just ping me there.
I will DM you. I've already DM'd you, but you know what I mean.
All right. Cheerio. Connor, my regards to your wife. Have a good night.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah, I will do the same, actually, Whick. Yeah, so like if anyone liked anything I had to say, all of my amazing fucking takes regarding Biden, there is more where that came from. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Chris Speaks. Chris is spelled KRIS. And yeah, it was a pleasure. It was nice to get to know you guys. And night.
Bye, Chris.
Bye.
Yeah, sorry. So, just
and Whick,
real quick.
Can I run for 15 more minutes and then can I call it? Because I got dinner waiting for me.
Yeah, I was about to say I want to go see a movie tonight, so we're going to end.
Which movie are you going to see?
That's a question. Barbie or Oppenheimer?
You're still kicking that around.
Yeah, I'm still kicking that around.
Well, but, again, Barbie is Chinese communist propaganda.
Go see Barbie and then tell me if it can be like an ironic meta commentary on like men seizing back society, and if I can just ignore the pro-feminist shit.
How about this?
And I can identify with the bad guys, then that'd be best.
I'll let my chat decide. So if you want me to see Barbie, give me bits. If you want me to see Oppenheimer, give me subs. And depending at 8 o'clock, the one I have more of is the one I will go see. Gang, if you've been liking this content, if you enjoy this show, this was a different format, right? So there's some scuffed nature to it, right? But we do what we can.
Well, and if you want Whick, since he's only got 15 minutes, if you also want to bring other people in before they go for 15 minutes, because
I got no one in the. Okay. I know one.
Well, the Ranger Rick guy or whoever you said was talking shit.
Oh no, he was just talking shit about you.
Oh, okay.
Later.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let me know when I can share something.
Yeah, follow the channel, like the channel, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch or Kick, hit that follow button. Okay. Carry on.
Yeah, so real quick, Ibram Gaunt, the commander of the Tanith First and Only, is disappointed that I sympathize with the Tau. I don't sympathize with the Tau. I was going to make an army of humans with Titanfall Gundams, not actually make a Tau army. I fucking hate Tau. I want to kill them all. All right, sorry, back to it.
So anyway, yeah, just the only thing I was going to say in summation, again, number one, you are ascribing a political motivation for a difference in prosecutorial discretion. You're saying that David Weiss exercised prosecutorial discretion, which he is entitled to have. At the end of the day, he was the presiding officer of that case. The attorneys under him do not have the authority to override him. He's not obligated to defer to their judgment. He can make a separate decision, number one. Number two, you're assuming that the motivation for that decision, this Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, was making a political
decision.
decision.
Stop saying this to me. So
no, no, I'm not going to because your assumption is that this Trump-appointed U.S. attorney actually has a bias towards the Democrats, and that's your burden.
I don't care.
Counterintuitive.
No. Let me tell you the way that I actually feel about that. I'm not going to infer. Are you still with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so Wick's face was just very still for a second, so it scared me. So I thought
that's his O face. He's still thinking about your father-in-law.
I'll do the NBC thing where I bounce and go like,
no, fuck
yum.
that, no, Jesus, no, yeah.
I'll mute you, but that'll let me know that you're still here. So, anyways, no, okay, so no. I don't think that, as a matter of fact, this is something that I kind of want to dispel. Just because I have criticisms of the Institute, I don't even think this is a Republican or a Democrat thing. I think this is Beltway institutionalists being versus people who are not a part of like the Beltway clique. I don't think it has anything to do with Democrat or Republican. And by the way, the reason why I feel this way is the same way that if I was to look at a law enforcement career, the way that I would have wanted to, let's just say that I was in perfect shape, no injuries, emotionally stable, never hurt myself, et cetera, et cetera. I would want
a radically different person then.
Yes, a radically different person. So let's presume that I was a radically different person. So my career through law enforcement would not largely be pro-Democrat or pro-Republican. It would be pro my job. So, and that's the way that I view prosecutors as well. They might go to the ballot box and Democrat and Republican. They might go to parties and talk shit about different levels of politics. They might even hate fucking Trump. But I think a majority of them care more about what they do on a day-to-day basis than they care necessarily about political bias. Okay? Now, that being said, I think that, so when you say, a Trump-appointed judge or a Trump-appointed prosecutor or something like that. That means almost nothing to me. And the reason why it means almost nothing to me is because a Trump-appointed prosecutor is probably somebody who got their law degree, worked in the city or the county, worked at the state level, worked their way up, got into the federal government, worked for another 5 or 10 years, and then ended up in a really good position. So they're not a pro-Trumpist or a pro-Biden person. They're an institutionalist. They're somebody who believes in the rule of law. They're somebody who believes in the government. There's somebody who believes in the justice system,
But you're actually saying that he doesn't believe in the rule of law because you believe that the rule of law would have mandated harsher charges against Hunter Biden.
I think when you get to a certain level of political atmosphere where you're in the upper echelons, because this is a part of every institution that I've ever been a part of, retail, restaurant, corporate, law enforcement, military, et cetera, what happens is rules for thee and not for me. Lower level workers or whatever, they get held to a much higher standard. If they fuck up, they get burned, their errors are documented, they, all that kind of shit. And then if you're the boss's son or the boss themselves or a high level manager or whatever, it all boils down to nepotism, who you know and how much they fucking like you and how powerful that person is. So I almost guarantee you, hold on, I'll finish this thought and you can get triggered by it. I fucking guarantee you, as a matter of fact, I would be surprised if there was an explicit text message from Biden or anybody in Biden's campaign talking to Garland or talking to Weiss saying, do not prosecute my son, give him misdemeanor charges with no jail time. I don't think that text message or email exists. And the reason why that text message or email exists is because it's probably pressure. Political, subconscious, social pressure that is either not articulated or it's articulated in ways that are not done in the open. Because if you were in the open, you would effectively be incriminating yourself by putting it in written words.
Let me say this. I'll say this as an olive branch, and then I'll probably snatch that olive branch away with how I'm gonna finish the sentence.
Sure.
I am absolutely open to the argument that a politically appointed U.S. attorney could have subconsciously made a decision to go easy on the boss's son.
Yeah.
I am open to that. That is intuitive. That argument can be made. I can be persuaded on that. I do not believe and would demand a high threshold of evidence that there was any sort of overt pressure from the attorney general or the president on this decision. It sounds like you're in the same position. You don't think that evidence exists. You're not making that case, correct?
I think that it could have been done. I think that if it was done, it would be very difficult to prove. I don't think these people would have put it in an email. I don't think they would have text message. I think it would have either been not articulated at all, or it would have been articulated in a private room without microphones.
Okay, do you think it's irresponsible of political commentators and politicians to make that claim that there was overt pressure by the president and the attorney general, if what you say is true?
I do, but I also think, but I also think that in order to disprove that claim, you conduct a thorough investigation. So, for instance, you subpoena Weiss's phones, you subpoena Garland's phones, you check their emails, you check their telephones. And by the way, even if they're totally fucking innocent, the reason why you do that is because you're sending the message that it would be wildly inappropriate for these people to exert that kind of influence over each other. And as a result, we're going to double and triple check. And then the same thing with the finances. To my knowledge, the two whistleblowers allege that fucking Hunter Biden has $500,000 in back taxes that he got through claiming fraudulent fucking business expenses, including admissions into sex clubs, prostitutes, cocaine, school tuition for his adult daughter, trips that he should have never claimed, et cetera, et cetera. So there's roughly $500,000 that the federal government did not receive in taxes due to fraud. And not only is he not getting prosecuted, he's not even paying the back taxes. So basically, what I would say is I would go to the person who created the plea deal, and I would say any other person of any other standing within the federal government or without the federal government would be forced to pay these back taxes. Why are we holding it back on the president's side?
I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. My understanding is he paid his tax liability like 2 years ago, the one that he owed, that it was like $2 million.
No, he paid for a solitary year. He didn't pay for 2014, 2015, 2017 through 2019. He still has $500,000 of tax liability that he hasn't paid.
Again, my understanding is the full tax liability, which was in the millions, was paid. So I'll have to, number one, I'll have to look into that.
That was or at least based off of the testimony of the whistleblowers who are actually directly involved in this fucking shit. They said that $500,000 was left on the table.
Okay, so then the other thing goes.
But before we get too far into it, because we all need to go here. But I want to let everyone know this was not intentional, but this ended up being a preview for a Sunday stream that those two are doing, right? Where they're going to go into detail. I think Pisco, as I understand, as well
Pisco
as
and Rob Knorr.
Rob Knorr are going to be joining these two interlocutors. So if you are on the edge of your seat, wanting to see this, where can they find this Sunday stream? Like, who is streaming this? Where can they go?
Okay, yeah. If Ruminate/Pondering isn't streaming it, you can catch it on, Counterpoints 40K. Counterpoints 40K is actually a Warhammer channel, but down in the description I have the Coliseum and the Essay channel, so you can check out those as well. But basically, we'll live stream it on Sunday, probably between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. EST. And then basically, you can, if you want to catch it on the VOD, just go to my Warhammer channel, check down in the description. You'll see my Essay channel and my Political VOD channel. Check out the VOD channel. You can catch it there if you don't catch it live.
Where can they find you on your end, Josiah?
So you all can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics, one word, pondering politics. It's left-leaning political commentary, no drama, no red pill. So if you look for like political geekery, that's your place. If you're looking for something spicier, probably want to go elsewhere. But I would love a like and subscribe. Even if you're like Ranger Rick and the others who dislike my takes, comment, engage. I'm happy to spar with you as I do with Hunter here. So yeah. Or Connor.
I didn't mean to cut into you, but I do need to go.
It's
so,
okay.
gang,
we'll have plenty of heat on Sunday.
Oh,
yes,
that's 100%.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have you both on again on my show at some point. You guys are great. Thank you, Counter, for agreeing to this. In retrospect, I should have brought on Josiah and his ilk separately because it got a little. They had very different critiques of you, and that didn't mesh, I think. But so for the format. I like the format personally, but again, we just got to make sure it's we're gonna drill down
cohesive.
on this. We're gonna get it done. Okay, we'll see you guys out there, and
Bye,
will
everybody.
see you guys.
Appreciate you. All right, let's go full cam. All right. Hello, ladies and germs, the 50 people that are here. So I'm gonna talk to y'all real quick about the channel, and then I'm gonna dip. and I'm going to change back to my good mic because I don't know what the fuck their problem was.
But let me change my audio properties to being higher gain, and then my mic quality should drastically improve. Okay, so I appreciate the 50 people who are hanging out. Please hang out for another 2 or 3 minutes so I can tell you what's going on. I am back at work. I am working 4 days a week, which is a blessing to me. It's only 32 hours, and I am able to take care of my wife, and she's able to stay home, particularly with the YouTube revenue. We've been able to make ends meet while I was on paternity leave, but I do need to start paying Taze again, and I do need to start paying my other fella who is helping me out with the Counterpoints Coliseum channel. So I do need your donations. I do need your subscriptions. I do need your stuff. However, I will not be live as frequently, which is disappointing. I am just in the wage cage Sunday through Thursday, and as a result, I'm only going to be live Friday, Saturday, and then maybe Sunday night. And Sunday night's an iffy because I'm still in the wage cage then. So that being said, I will be, of course, doing like weekly 40K content. We're going to wrap up Hell's Reach. We're going to redo Astartes for like a channel relaunch, celebrating that we hit 40,000 subscribers, and also updating the quality of the Astartes breakdown video, and also going back and redoing some of the older fan animations. The reason why I want to do that is because I'm in like on the older videos, like my passion is there, me articulating things is there, but because it's not scripted, you can hear me going, thinking a little bit, pulling in random information, all that kind of stuff. It's shot in a 4:3. The audio quality isn't as great as I want it to be. As a matter of fact, in one of them, Siege by Sodaz, which has like 30,000 views, the audio quality is actually terrible. So I want to fix all of that and just make sure, like, I'll do an Archeo vault, so I'll do a vault with old content, but I want to make sure that everything that's on the channel that's available and listed on the primary page is just banger content. So we're going to do a channel relaunch. And then also another thing that we might need your financial support for is I am working with an animator who used to work for Games Workshop, and we want to do fan animations ourselves. We want to do, Star Wars versus 40K, 40K versus Titanfall, 40K versus Star Trek, like all that kind of stuff, and basically just create serious and well-animated action sequences that pit these worlds against each other so it could be viewed as like satire and comedy while still having fun with the violence. Now, we're in like the really, really, really beginning of that. Will it be woke? Probably not. It will probably be relatively anti-woke, where we will have woke things being smashed by non-woke things. So now here's the problem. So I want to say this just in case there's people who are like, oh yeah, we're getting Astartes level quality shit in the next 6 months. Nah, that's not what's going on. What's going on is I've talked to absolutely nothing. He's the guy who did the Deathcore of Krieg animation a while back. I've talked to a gentleman, Ninja Nibu, something like that. He gave me some of the assets he had. I was pulling some things off of Sketchfab, something like that. And we're just playing with the assets. So we have no idea whether or not we're going to be able to churn out anything good quality, but it should at least be entertaining. So we're going to work on that in the background, and hopefully it becomes a good deal. Thank you, whoever became a sponsor. I appreciate you. And then I'm just going to scroll up a little bit and answer a few questions because we got some people who are having fun in the content. RC, one of the best 40K channels. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. It always warms my heart when I get to see you in here. If you had to choose between World Eaters and Word Bearers to join and become a Space Marine, what would you choose and why? Also, Lamenters or Celestial Lines? So, Lamenters versus Celestial Lines is easy. Lamenters. I love Blood Angels. I love the fact that the Lamenters don't have a lot of corruption in their gene seed. I love that they're self-sacrificial and kind of similar to the Salamanders in that effect. I don't like that they're painted yellow, but besides that, if I had a loyalist chapter, if the Lamenters were black or red or gold or a mix thereof, I would have done Lamenters as a loyalist chapter for my first army. Part of the reason why I pitched Deathwatch is because I couldn't choose between the chapters. When it comes to Word Bearers versus World Eaters, if this was real life Word Bearers, that way, like, I don't just get, like, insta-killed in the Colosseums of the World Eaters. But if we're talking about, like, what I would like to be if I was, like, a steroided out, 8-foot-tall demigod of war, absolutely, World Eaters all day. I would just try to avoid getting some, I would try to avoid getting the butcher's nails put in, but whatever. And then if you liked Rome, there's a show called Domina. Not sure where it's streaming. The season 1 and season 2 seasons of Rome were phenomenal. I love that show. And Titus Pullo died, unfortunately, this past year. I was a huge fan of that actor. I thought he did a phenomenal job as Titus Pullo. I thought he did an okay job as the Punisher. And whenever I saw him playing a bad guy in any other TV show, I got excited because he typically does such a good job. Can we get the lore regarding you being kicked out at 18 and joining the Marines? That was more interesting than the relationship talk. Yeah, sure. Actually, real quick, we can do that. So basically what happened was I was raised middle class. We moved around every 3 years. I lived in Belgium for 3 years, Texas for 3 years. I lived in Central Florida for 3 years before and after that. And then I moved houses in Central Florida while I was in high school. And with that, like moving, I did a lot of cool stuff. I got to travel Europe. I learned French, et cetera, et cetera. My parents, I've always been a pretty smart guy and a pretty like rhetorically attuned fella. But you know, I hated school. I hated being stuck in a desk. I hated not being able to chase girls and do drugs and all that kind of stuff. And my parents are really socially conservative. So they wouldn't let me stay out past 10 p.m. They didn't let me drink. They didn't let me smoke. They didn't let me chase girls. So what I did when I was 17, this was after 9/11, so I kind of knew that I was joining subconsciously. I just chased girls, you know, drank a lot, smoked a lot, was kind of like a wild child. And I got asked to leave. I didn't get expelled, but I got asked to leave my high school because a friend and I got caught with marijuana on campus, and it was a private high school. So I got kicked out of a public high school, so I was going to a private high school, and then I got kicked out of the private high school or asked to leave. I wasn't like expelled, but asked to leave. So I went to adult high school, self-paced, and I got my diploma within 2 weeks. And my grandfather, God bless him, he asked me like, "Okay, you're a high schooler with no plans to join the military, nothing really going on. What are you going to do now?" And he was kind of an asshole about it. But I did go to a recruiter. I talked to them. The Marine Corps seemed like the most hardcore version. So I was like, well, I can be a loser and smoke pot, and my girlfriend can cheat on me when she goes to Florida State, and I stay home and do community college, and I'm working the pizza ovens, and she was a relatively attractive gal, so I had to figure that some gentleman would be trying to riz her up while I was 3 hours away, and I didn't think that we had a high chances of relationship survival, considering we were two 17-year-old kids who liked to party a little bit. So unfortunately, we broke up. I went and joined the Marine Corps, and, that's it. And then Marines, Okinawa, Japan, Iraq, California, came home, got my 4-year degree, met my wife, we got married, and then I became a law enforcement officer, and then now you're seeing the after effects of that. So that's lore in like 3 minutes. So 40K can go into Stellaris and run into the Imperium the player made in that run. Hell yeah! I don't know enough about Stellaris, but apparently like the Stellaris like Terran faction or whatever is just like the Imperium of Man, and they're even more racist, which is based. So I kind of want to, I wouldn't mind having like a Stellaris capital ship, fighter ship war, or like resource war in the 40K universe. I think that'd be hilarious. As a matter of fact, Stellaris could probably be, if I remember correctly, that's like either a solar system or galaxy-wide spanning conflict. I don't know if it's in the Milky Way or not, but you could basically have the world of Stellaris be peer Xenos and human civilizations that the Imperium absorbed, and that could be the lore. So that's actually a really good idea. I don't know how to do it, but we'll think about it. Yeah. Do I play Total Warhammer? No, but I'm getting into fantasy. Ever played Dawn of War, best 40K game? I have, and it's great. I got caught selling shrooms. School called the police on me. Yep. Many such cases. Find yourself a ride or die, gal, fellows. My wife is a tough and cool lady. Thank you, Sport Brand. I appreciate you. I am the law, indeed. Did you think any Star Wars characters would survive in the 40K universe? Yeah, there's like a healthy chunk. I think Jedi and Sith would relatively do well as sanctioned psychers, but I think a lot of them would be killed and consumed. Like if they were subordinate to the Inquisition, they might do okay. And then I think bounty hunters would find a nice little niche in the Warhammer 40K universe. I think they would be able to sell themselves as either gangers or bounty hunters, or they would be able to work for the Inquisition or the Imperium and Spec Ops units. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things that the more hardcore members of the Star Wars universe could survive in the 40K universe, but the Star Wars universe has to get more hardcore in order to actually survive. Try the game Alien Dark Descent, heavily based on Fireteam Aliens. You get to run a Marine fire team. I mean, that sounds based too. So yeah, and it's good. So Lauren, Tim Pooldock is coming out this summer. Yeah, Yeah, it's supposed to come out this summer. They're working on releases from the interview subjects. Everything's done. Everything's cut up. Everything's edited. But Tim Pool doesn't want to get fired for using B-roll footage and also the interviews. He doesn't want to get fired by any of the interview subjects. So lawyers are going back and securing releases, like interview releases, which is stupid because we should have gotten releases when we first started. I mean, that could have saved us some time. But also, like when you're a scoot and shoot documentary team, I kind of can't believe that there's this much I dotting and T crossing to go through. I kind of can't believe that Tim Pool has this much money to spend on lawyers to make sure he doesn't get sued. It's like I thought he was kind of like a run and gun fella. At least back in the day he was, before he got shitloads of cash. So anyways, I feel bad, but you know, it'll come out eventually. Stellaris stream would be great. It's basically super complicated Civ in space. Nice. Yeah. Obviously, if we go full time, I wouldn't mind gaming during the day or doing 3D animations during the day while we were hanging out and talking and answering chat. Darth Vader versus Abaddon would be crazy. Hell yeah. I would love to see a demon sword. So, I would love to see Drachnian go up against an antimatter blade. I think that'd be sick. Thoughts on the rumors for Fulgrim and Vulcan coming back for 11th edition? You believe it or not? Yeah, kind of. So Spawn Pool, excuse me. The way that I would do it, if I was GW, is I would have each Primarch fulfill their Arthurian legend. So you would have the Salamanders find all the pieces and bring back, Vulcan. You would have the, Fulgrim come out of retirement in order to take a few planets in the name of Slaanesh, and he's like this degenerate and all that kind of shit. And I would just move through the list until eventually all of the Primarchs are back on the table in one way or another. And then I would blow up the setting. I would have a better end times scenario, similar to Warhammer Fantasy, where the Emperor dies and Chaos wins and the universe is ripped apart. And then what I would do is I would launch Warhammer 50K. I would take the next 10,000 years to do all of the end times kind of thing. I would kill off some of the Primarchs. I would keep some of the Primarchs. I would kill off some of the demons. I would keep some of the demons. And then basically I would do an end time scenario, have an apocalyptic ending. And then after that was done, I would launch Warhammer 50,000, which would be all the Primarchs trying to survive. So they would be stuck in the dead and dying, collapsed world, and they would be trying to wait for the Emperor to come back, and maybe even trying to get the Emperor back, but failing. So I think that'd be a great setting. Could the Bene Gesserit do well in the 40K universe? It depends on whether or not they're sanctioned. So if they're unsanctioned witches, of course they're going to get persecuted and slaughtered. If they're sanctioned and brought into the inquisitorial fold, then they'll just be sanctioned psychers, which is still not a great life. But still. Fulgrim is already fucking around in real space and got Abby. Yeah, I just think he's talking about models, like the models are coming back. I hope you enjoy that, but I never cared for 50K. I mean, you don't have to. Really, if you look at... Right now, we have Fantasy and Age of Sigmar. Those are two parallel gaming systems with their own lore, their own models, all that kind of stuff. And I do hope they bring back the old world, kind of like the Horus Heresy is for Warhammer 40K. And then you could just keep four game systems: Fantasy, Age of Sigmar, Horus Heresy, and 40K, and you have enough lore and characters that you could stretch that out for the next century. You don't have to do like an end times event until the year 2100, like 30 years after I'm dead. But I'm thinking on the scale of things, the Emperor should die at some point. He should die, the Imperium should collapse, and then there should be some people surviving in the remnants of the Imperium, and then they should be trying to get the Emperor to reincarnate into the world, and then eventually they succeed, but, they spend a decade failing. So that would be my recommendation. If I was in charge of the lore, that's what I would do. And I wouldn't release those changes for like another 70 years. I would bring back one Primarch and one Demon Prince every 5 years, and I would have it be a narrative-changing event where, the Leviathan is taking over this area, the Tyranids are taking over this area, the Necrons are taking over this area, the Imperium is, fraud and collapse in all these different spaces. This demon Primarch comes into real space and seizes up their territory. This demon Primarch seizes this territory. They have interfighting because they're trying to rival each other in order to achieve a goal, but ultimately their disputes are ended and put aside so they can fight the Imperium. That's what I would do. I would make Days of Our Lives, but Warhammer 40,000. That's what I would do. Yeah. My only problem with the old world is I think they're bringing back the old models, whereas I think they should do brand new sculpts. Yeah. Anyone heard any updates on Space Marine 2? Nope, not yet. They did the cooperative trailer, and then we haven't heard anything else. At least that's what I've been heard, and I check like daily or like weekly at least. Do you ever spend any time thinking about the means with which humans can become a spacefaring civilization, or if it's worthwhile? Dickie boy, I do. I think we need to make Earth a sustainable environment and ecosystem, but I do think that, what was it? What book series was it? The Expanse. I think The Expanse, where you basically have like giant skyscrapers with engines on them, achieving gravity through thrust, and then different human beings having like weird gravitational evolutionary changes as they adapt to their new environments. I think that's more likely than us figuring out like gravity technology and then kind of like in Star Wars where it's just like you're in a 3-dimensional sea that kind of like is floating, but you have like pure gravity. I think that the Expanse version of space exploration is infinitely more likely than the Star Wars or Warhammer 40K or Star Trek versions are. So unless we figure out like gravitational technology, I think that's more likely. Oh man, Stellaris 40K would be based. True. Is Warhammer just battle and violence all the time? Doesn't sound like an environment conducive to human life. Old school, you are correct. But if you read books like Eisenhorn, he does a great job of describing civilian life in the 40K setting, and it's actually like weirdly similar to the way we live now because the galaxy is so large that different places are at war at different times. So there are peaceful parts. As a matter of fact, it's like more likely you would be at peace in the Imperium than you would be at war. But then within the next like 3,000 years, your planet will be sacked and destroyed by, Eldar Grapists or Orcs or Chaos Forces or Dark Eldar or some shit. So it's like once every 3,000 years, your planet will suffer a near cataclysmic historical event. But for those 3,000 years, you can chill, Bring back Perturabo. Yes. He is the favorite. Yep. Niz, you are absolutely correct. Iron Warriors need some love. They are a great faction. I love their lore. They seem to be doing one Loyalist and Trader Primarch per edition too. Yeah. I mean, like that's a decent pace, but I would do it like once every 5 years. I wouldn't do it every edition. We have to eliminate the threat of the CCP and fundamental Islam first. True. That's just true. Welcome to Holy Terra. Enjoy your stay. Indeed. What's my feelings on the UFO? It's either ours or it's aliens, and I can't tell. So, I don't know. Whenever they actually tell us, I'll have an opinion. Can you make Warhammer material and not get the Games Workshop banhammer? Whatever 4690, yeah, you can, but you have to make it like satire or comedy. So in the United States, we have a lot better free speech protections than Europe or the Commonwealth or even Eastern Europe. I think the European creators and the Asian creators are really scared to make 3D animations because basically they can get the pantsuit off of them and their countries are not going to protect them. Whereas in the United States, satire and comedy is specifically protected as free speech, especially under fair use. So we can do 3D animations, but what we couldn't do, at least to my understanding of the law, we couldn't just take Games Workshop's intellectual property and then forward it. So we couldn't have a fan-made animation that was just 40K assets doing 40K things in line with 40K lore that was a one-off story or a multi-part story. We just can't do that without some level of like legal liability where it's going to be up to GW on whether or not they sue you into the ground. However, if you make it kind of like comedic or satirical or new or interesting, then I think you have a pretty banger fair use argument. So, for instance, if you take a bunch of 40K assets and you slam them up against Star Wars assets and you make it a really cool, violent interaction, then you can say, hey, I'm not stealing the 40K intellectual property assets and then just forwarding the story independently. I'm taking two competing intellectual properties and then smashing them together as a commentary on both of their worlds and how they would interact with each other if these universes interacted with each other. So I think that's an easier and more legally defensible way to do it. So, yeah. Aliens haven't visited Earth. Why would they? Yeah, because we're violent. We'd probably kill them with shotguns. It's like how I didn't understand how black ships worked until I learned the scale of 40K. Yeah, exactly, Niz. There's so much space and so many things going on all the time that anything is technically possible at any point as long as it makes sense, relatively speaking, within the lore. Counterpoints. We already have gravity technology. Ever been on the Gravitron or a merry-go-round? O'Neill cylinders are feasible with current tech if we had a moon base and asteroid mining. Yeah, I would have to study that a little bit more aggressively to see how that would apply to spaceships. And the reason why is because I understand like centrifugal force works. I don't understand it logically though, or physically. And I don't know what those spaceships would look like. Oftentimes when you look at like science fiction media, it's just a ship that looks cool in space that's just kind of flying and then everybody is stuck to the bottom of the ground. But if there was like different spinning compartments inside the spaceship, I would have to know what that looks like in order to have like an informed opinion on how possible space exploration is. I recommend watching Star Wars The Clone Wars if you're wanting to get into Star Wars 10 out of 10 TV show. RC, yeah, my only problem is like I'm a very huge critic of the action. If action is not somewhat in line with like real world psychology and tactics, I get super critical. And unfortunately for a lot of Star Wars action, it does just tend to be assets on a battlefield blazing away at each other, and nobody hits each other until it's convenient for the plot. And so I kind of get less immersed in the world because of the lack of reality. Now, I'm not saying there aren't good characters or good spin-offs or interesting, cool things to check out. That's just like a break in immersion that kind of hurts me. But to the roughly 40 people who are hanging out in chat, I do appreciate you. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that kind of YouTube nonsense. B, if you're a political nerd and you're just tolerating me talk about Warhammer 40K, check out the description below. We have the Counterpoints Coliseum, which is the stream VOD channel. I also post essays there, but then I have an essay channel that's down in the description as well, where if you just want to hear me rant for 15 to 20 minutes, you can do that. And then we're growing all three of those channels at once. Of course, I have a limited time frame just because I'm back in the wage cage, but I will try to bring you weekly 40K content and then 1 to 3 times weekly streams as possible. I have to keep my family in the calculus while I'm doing these things, but yeah, I appreciate it. So, oh god damn it, there's more fucking comments. I'll get caught up and then we'll get out of here. Disney would be joining us soon, brother. True. Speaking of 40K, GW literally won't take my money, not Tyranids anyway, not even eBay. True. They never build as many models as they need. Thank you, Christian Valeris. I appreciate you. Stormtrooper aim. Yeah, but I kind of want to do lore Stormtroopers, not video Stormtroopers. I want like lore Stormtroopers where like they just bum rush and do close quarters battle tactics. I would love to do like a Grey Knight versus dozens of stormtroopers. I think that'd be fucking sick. Like redo the Darth Vader scene from Rogue One, but instead of it being Darth Vader, instead it's a Grey Knight versus stormtroopers. I think that'd be fucking sick. You gonna pick up the new Amazon exclusive Belisarius Colin Fabius Biobook Gene Father when it drops? No, but I do realize that in order to get further into the lore, I'm gonna have to start reading again. So we're gonna do that. For sure. It's only like 10 to 20 years till nuclear diamond batteries and automated graphene cysterine tech go mainstream. Then it's a whole new world. I hope you're right, Sport Brand. I hope you're right. I hope I'm old enough and I hope I'm still alive to see humanity evolve into its next form. I think that would be cool. Penal Legion episode. Absolutely. We'll do it. We'll do Last Chancers, the 13th Legion. We'll have the Last Chancers and we'll reenact one of the scenes that is stuck in my mind forever is the Last Chancer having a firefight where they're getting boarded and then they blow out the boarders through the bay while they're losing the firefight. That was one of my favorite scenes. And then also when, I forget the main character's name, but somebody's talking shit and they're going to stab him with a Bowie knife. And so the dude goes to stab him and he takes the blade in his arm in order to deflect it. And it does like sever an artery and cut him and he starts bleeding. But then he fucking knocks the teeth out of the person who stabbed him, and then he just tourniquets himself because he knows that he'll survive like a grievous stab wound, and in the meantime he can beat the person's ass. So he beats the guy's ass and then gets medical attention. I thought it was one of the coolest things I've ever read. Me too. I am very pumped. Yohad Ganor. I am very excited. Henry Cavill has the passion, but does he have the talent? We'll find out. Parasocial love to you and yours. Deeply appreciate y'all hanging out with me. I hope you have a beautiful night. Bye for now.